EFed podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. I'm your host, Mikey Unlikely, and I'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Atomic Dropcast Network. Hey everybody, we're back. EFed podcast, episode 50. I can't believe we made it this far. I'm excited, glad to have you tuning in once again. Appreciate you taking the time, as always. Guys, EFed podcast, episode 50, we thought we would do something a little different, a little special. Today, you're going to get the interview of me. That's right, Brian, the producer of the show, is going to be interviewing me. We did this a couple weeks ago live in the Discord, had a great time. And so you're going to hear some questions from the crowd. You're going to hear questions that were sent in advance and much, much more. It's a very long interview. So this week we're going sans question of the week, sans EFed podcast. We'll get back to those next week. But in the meantime, enjoy the Mikey Unlikely interview. It is a long one. All right, guys. Of course, if you want to find us on the Twitter machine, we are at the EFed podcast. That's the number one way to get a hold of us. You can also find the EFed podcast Discord over in the profile of the Twitter. Jump right in there. We got 100 plus handlers in there. We have a great time, great community. It's a lot of fun. And don't forget to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/EFed podcast. We do a lot of fun stuff like Bad Graps, where we all get together. We all watch a single stream of bad wrestling or good wrestling, and we laugh, have fun, and talk about it. It's a lot of fun. We got a cool group over there, and you can get involved over at patreon.com/EFed podcast. Otherwise, guys, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors before we get going. Please check out their products. Please check out their feds. If it's for you, go ahead and give it a little application or pick up an item. And we would greatly appreciate that you help our sponsors because they help us. Here we go. Mikey Unlikely interview.
Occupy Pro Wrestling, putting the smart back into smart mark since 2012 as we grapple with design and media services for wrestlers, promotions, and podcasters. We strive to enjoy pro wrestling in our community and podcast, centered around interviews with wrestlers and fans alike. If you like what you see and hear, check out the central hub for everything we're doing and the latest from our site partners over at occupyprowrestling.com.
All right, guys, the EFed podcast is very happy to announce its brand new partnership over on Facebook with the Social Media Wrestling Association. The Social Media Wrestling Association, along with its 16,000 member strong influence page known as Generational Wrestling Society, has proven to be the true revolutionary EFed company of Facebook. The SWA welcomes written, video, and audio promos for its talent, as well as results provided in live 2K audio commentary and written results. The SWA is more than just an EFed. With GWS, all areas of the wrestling community are covered. From belt collectors, wrestling news, trivia, and podcasts, and EFeds. Check them out on Facebook at Social Media Wrestling Association and Generational Wrestling Society. You can give a search for both. Once you join both, you'll be glad to become associated with the society. And we're going to be posting our show on Facebook exclusively on the SWA and GWS sites. And we're very happy to have announced this partnership with the SWA, and you can hear about it here every week. So guys, go check them out. Social Media Wrestling Association on Facebook.
Defiance, an angle-fed boasting 8 years of continuous fantasy wrestling. Defiance offers opportunities for original characters, micros, a standalone website utilizing Backstage 3 script, and a forum hosted on the long-running fwrestling.com, as well as a roster full of some of the most experienced writers in the game. Come see for yourself at defiancewrestling.com. That's defiancewrestling.com.
Hey guys, are you digging this podcast? Well, we really appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you check out my other podcast. The Atomic Dropcast is a look back at the wrestling of yesteryear through adult eyes. We watch the wrestling that we watched as kids, as adults, with a couple of beers in our hands. It's a great time. Check it out over at atomicdropcast.com. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
OCW Fed is a hybrid pro wrestling EFed that combines elements of role play and competitive play using the WWE 2K franchise. Whether you're on PlayStation or Xbox, OCW Fed is a creative outlet for gamers and pro wrestling fans alike. With over 16 years experience producing weekly content and live Twitch events, OCW Fed has a thriving community with handlers from all over the world. If this sounds like your cup of tea, come check us out at OCWFed.com, OCW Fed TV on YouTube, and OCW Fed on Twitch. It's like D&D for wrestling nerds.
Hey everybody, it's Mikey. No, we're not back to the show just yet. First, I want to tell you about my Patreon. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh no, am I going to have to pay for the podcast? No. The answer is emphatically no. The show has been and forever will be free. No, Brunk, you will not have to pay for the podcast. However, we have been asked by a handful of people how they can help support the show. And we've also been asked, mostly by Fuzz, why we didn't have a Patreon yet. And I quote, "You stupid I can't believe you don't have a Patreon. I will hurt you if you don't take my money now." End quote. That was Fuzz. He's a scary dude. So with that in mind, you can find us at patreon.com/EFed podcast. Contributions start as low as $3 a month. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, not only the illustrious host of the EFed podcast, not only one of the esteemed proprietors of EWTs, EFed Tees, EWmerch.com, also the handler of the incomparable and ignorant Mikey Unlikely. It's your favorite host, folks. It's Mikey. Mikey, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian. First time listener. Happy to be on the show.
That's why I'm still producer. You don't ever listen back.
I don't ever listen. I don't need to. That's why I got you. So, no, I'm glad to be here. This is my show. We once recorded an interview just like this. 100%. And it was many moons ago, and both of us didn't really have the time to get to it because it was kind of like bonus stuff. So we got to do it again because of Fuzz and Lynn's ingenuity.
When we kept holding it back, it was always just in case someone flakes. Because, hey, you know, within the hobby, no one's really known to flake, so...
Well, let's cover that because that's exactly what happened, and that's exactly why we're here. And I know there's some buzz around the fuzz, as Fuzz would say. But yeah, Sermon 50 was supposed to be Joe, the boss of the CWF. And unfortunately, unfortunately, we need Joe more than Joe needs us, Brian.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I don't know about this. I know about this.
Yes, Big Joe GeoCities.
Oh, man. Well, hey, look. He's got a lot of cities to run. They're in a geosphere.
So long story short, Joe big dogged me, and he wanted me, you better follow me back or else I'm not doing your interview that you want. And I'm like, bro, you requested the interview. And so long story short, Joe and I had a little falling out because I wouldn't follow him back because he posts a lot of weird shit.
You hate to see it.
You hate to see it, Christy. And so what had happened was he said he wasn't going to do the interview, and here we are, filling in.
We are. I did not know that was the reason we were doing this. So hey, I learned a little bit of something while you guys do. I thought we were just doing it because it's fun bonus content.
That too.
Yeah, you hate to see it because I think it's been echoed on many interviews that this entire EFed podcast community, man, might be just one of the most pure, great communities now. It's very, everyone seems to get along very well. There's not a whole lot of drama over here. It's fantastic. It's really good for the hobby.
It's great to see. I'm happy that we can keep most of the drama out of the chat. I mean, we have some fun. And everybody can take a ribbing or two. But if it gets serious or anybody has a problem, they get with me and we nip it in the butt. And we're done. Good to go.
There you go. So, all right. Are you ready to start this very prestigious interview?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Mikey, how did you get into professional wrestling?
Well, it's a long story, Brian. Back in 1976. No, just kidding. In 1996, actually, we moved in with my new stepdad, who is still my stepdad today. And his son, my older stepbrother, was a big wrestling fan. He had wrestling magazines and VHSs and all kinds of stuff. It was all WWF stuff. And so even from night one, I was flipping through magazines. I was reading and trying to digest as much as I could because it was crazy. I'd never seen this stuff before. And we watched the tape the next day. It was WrestleMania 12, Shawn versus Brett, main event, the Iron Man. And that match, it felt so real. Like it felt like they were really fighting. And by the end of it, 8-year-old or 10-year-old me I was hooked. That was it.
There you go. I mean, you couldn't have picked a better and a worse match to start with.
I know you hate that match, but I absolutely loved it, and holds a special place to me because, the whole time, I can't remember who the commentator was, whether it's JR or Vince or whoever, and they're just shouting, "It's the boyhood dream come true." And I'm just like, I'm a boy. I have dreams. This is amazing.
Who were some of your favorites? Once you got into this wild and wacky and great sport show, entertainment, whatever, of professional wrestling, who were some of the guys you gravitated toward early on?
Well, it was Shawn Michaels at first as a babyface.
Good pick.
When he was in that run when he just won the title for the first time. That's what hooked me, and that's who I wanted to see the next week on Raw. Who else? Late 90s. I don't know. I mean, guys like Ken Shamrock later on, I thought he's legit. Oh, this is great. It was always my thing is this looks like a fight, and that's what I wanted to see. But then later on, it became characters that were larger than life, your Undertakers, your Kanes. But I would say late 90s, my favorite wrestler of all time, D'Lo Brown.
Oh, Mr. Headwagon, chest protecting, receipt handing, D'Lo Brown.
Here's the receipt. Yeah, no, I don't know. It was just something about him. It was just had a charisma that I was like a cocky little kid, and he just felt like he was on the verge of breaking out the entire time. So I was just always pulling for D'Lo, and it came to a point where every time Raw would come on, we'd sit down as a family, my stepdad, me, my older brother, and we'd all sit there and watch. And as if D'Lo's match was on, I was standing on the couch, like with every blow and I was jumping around and acting crazy. It was just, I loved wrestling.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like, through a cheap plug through our Atomic Dropcast podcast, and then your love of D'Lo, I definitely, for no other reason, a comedic standpoint, found a much greater respect for the head wagging, because we haven't even gotten to the chest protector.
No, not at all. Yeah, he's good stuff. And through the Atomic Dropcast, where we go back and we drink like we are today, and we watch old wrestling and we review it from a new perspective. It's a lot of fun. Check it out at atomicdropcast.com.
So would you say, I'm kind of freestyling here a little bit, so would you say, because in those early days, well, through most of that run, D'Lo was more of a heel. Would you say you gravitated more toward heels or more toward baby faces?
Probably more towards the heels. I mean, in those days, it wasn't much difference. I mean, you had your Stone Colds.
Yeah, a lot of blending.
Yeah, you had your DX. I was a big DX kid. I was doing the suck it. I got in trouble one time for standing out in my front yard and doing suck it to every car that went past. And one of them stopped and came back and told my parents, and I got in trouble for that one. So, but yeah, I was into a lot of that stuff. A lot of the, at the time it was blended. It was just action all the time. Every match was a car crash. It was great.
One of that age too, I think sometimes it's a little tough to discern who's who anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't long before I discovered there was more wrestling outside WWF, and I found my other favorite wrestler of all time, which is RVD. So between Rob Van Dam and D'Lo Brown, I guess it's just a frog splash that I really like. But between those two, that was my wrestling fandom from 97 through 2000 and I don't know, 5 or 6.
There you go. So how'd you find Rod Van Dam? How'd you find DCW?
Flipping through channels. Wrestling was over, and I think I was flipping through channels late at night, and it was on TNN at the time. And I saw and I said, what the hell is this? And there's girls wearing hardly any clothes, and guys are doing like the Van Terminator. You'd see a clip of that, and then you'd see Taz flip a guy over his head and land on his neck. And you see like Bam Bam was it Bam Bam that went through the stage or went through the ring?
Yeah.
You see that stuff and you're like, oh my God, this is completely different. What is
It's
this?
like, oh, scantily clad women and men are getting injured?
It's good stuff. So I started watching ECW, and then eventually I had a cousin who was lived in Western Pennsylvania or Eastern Pennsylvania towards Philadelphia, and he turned me on to CZW, Combat Zone Wrestling, and the deathmatch tournaments they had. And I think I was 15 at the time, and I was like, yes, bring me the blood. And so I started watching all these death matches. I watched Japanese stuff. I watched IWA Mid-South, Combat Zone, XPW, all that stuff. And I was into the extreme stuff.
Bring you the blood, bring you the light tubes.
That was it. I started doing backyard wrestling. We did like a light tubes and ladders match once. It was so dumb. So dumb.
Talk a little bit about not only your love of wrestling, but live wrestling. You've gone to, in my estimation, a large amount of live wrestling shows, independents, and etc.
Yeah, since I got into Combat Zone, I never made it to a CCW show, and they're still around. And I guess it's not really the same, but I'd still like to go for nostalgia or whatever the case.
And hepatitis.
Yeah, hepatitis, yeah, they got a lot of that, I'm sure. But otherwise, like, Ring of Honor, I've been to a ton of Ring of Honor shows all over Ohio and Pittsburgh. I've enjoyed my time there. What's the one in Cleveland? I've been drinking for the last 2 hours, guys, so this is going to be a little rough.
Hey.
Absolute Intense Wrestling, AIW. It's a great independent wrestling promotion in Cleveland. They have big stars like the Honky Tonk Man, the Road Dogg, Billy Gunn. They always have but it's always like mixed with great wrestlers. It's where Johnny Gargano's from. He was the trainer there, and that's where he came up. It's where Tyler Black used to wrestle there, Seth Rollins now. Just like so many guys came through there. It was like an extension of like Ring of Honor's roster, basically. And I hope AIW comes back. I know they have a show in like Indianapolis or something here. They're going to do it where everybody's spaced out outside. So shout out to those guys. That's like one of my favorite independent feds. And I've been up there a million times. I've taken my wife up there. She enjoys people watching at the wrestling shows. So
that poor woman. So speaking of your wife and the trials and tribulations you've put her through, how did you find e-wrestling?
E-wrestling.
EFed.
EFeds. I've never heard the term. We got in a family computer back in the late 90s. I want to say like 97 or 98, a Gateway, back when those were a big deal. So we got the Gateway, and I'm searching everything, wrestling. I want to see everything there is, and I find out there's sites that are giving shit away for like telling you the results and stuff. And I'm digesting everything I can, and so I'm looking for wrestling games. No, that's not even the truth. I've later on, like I'd find like TNM, and I'd find like EWR games, and then eventually someone would be like, "Oh, did you hear about e-fedding?" And at that point, I had, and it was through Yahoo chats. Ooh. I used to sit in the wrestling Yahoo chat as a teenager, and I was probably creeped on by so many weirdos. But I would sit in there in those chats, and I would just talk wrestling all the time, and I loved it. And obviously, people would go in there and they'd advertise their e-feds. Hey, come check out my e-fed. And I was like, what the hell is this? So I joined one of those real feds or real wrestler e-feds where you portray another wrestler. So I was, I think, Christian the first time, because that was one of the few characters who was available. There's like 80 people in this e-fed. Eventually, Kurt Angle became free, and I took him over. And it was good stuff. This was like 99, 2000-ish, and I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay. So early start.
Yeah, it was so bad. It was like I would just watch wrestling, and I'd be like, okay, Kurt Angle's walking down the hallway. He knocks on the Rock's door. Rock, come out here right now. I got a bone to pick with you. Like, I wouldn't even say Kurt Angle things. I would just say things that I could think of as my 12-year-old. Like, get out here. I'm going to beat you up. I know you're probably changing in your locker room right now. It was awful.
Devastation.
I ended up in a stable pretty quick when I first started e-fedding, which was great because I could learn from those guys. And I don't know who they were. I couldn't tell you who they are today, other than I was Kurt Angle and they were Edge and Christian. So shout out to Edge and Christian for their tutorship to me.
Let's just assume it was the real one.
Yeah, it was real Edge and Christian. And they were teaching me the ways of the promo. And obviously this was an RP fed. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed playing. And then from there, I found feds on like GeoCities. I turned my older stepbrother onto it. And we got to playing together, and he said, "Why don't I just do this? I can make one of these." He was 16.
Yeah, he has the right to. He's of age of EFed.
He's of age. Yeah, 21's drinking, 18 smoking, 16 EFed. Fed head. So he opened a Fed. He built one on GeoCities, opened it up, and I couldn't tell you what the fuck it was called, but I was the world champion day one.
Nepotism strikes again.
It was great. So I don't count that today as a world championship reign, but quickly he folded because he was interested in girls. Ooh. And I stayed in EFedding because I weren't. And and so I got into other EFEDs, and there was a guy who had one called Pizza Joe's EFED. And I was like, this is the place for me. And it was awful. It was a terrible time.
Was it on GeoCities?
It sure was, absolutely.
That might have been Big Pizza Joe, GeoCities.
Well, maybe he was. This is the predecessor. Before he was a billionaire, he was a pizza guy. That'd be amazing.
That's why you need him more than he needs you.
I do need some pizza, so we'll talk about that later. From there, I was in a ton of Feds. My first characters after Kurt Angle and Christian, I portrayed D'Lo Brown as well at one point. I was so stoked.
Do you have the receipt?
I did have the receipt, and I wore the chest protector and everything. Shit. After that, I made my first character. I think it was the original Prankster was his name. I stole it from the Offspring song. It was terrible.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Didn't last long. Soon I was just insane like everybody else.
Everybody else.
So if you knew a Just Insane, it wasn't me because I was a terrible Just Insane.
All the Just Insanes were terrible Just Insanes.
That's true. So then I finally got one that I got into a groove with, and that was Kid Wicked, KIDWIKKID.
Because why not?
And because why not? So I got into Kid Wicked, and that was my backyard wrestling name too. And it led me to be inspired at 16 to get the word Wicked tattooed on me in Chinese. So that's the reason I have a Chinese tattoo.
Folks, this is an exclusive. We did this interview one time before. I know that wasn't said.
No. There's a lot more coming out this one. I was trying to keep this short. So I was a Kid Wicked. I had a couple good runs and a couple good Feds, and by that I mean I was terrible and I was in bad Feds, and I did well. Then I moved to Josh Generation, which was my next character. It was a ripoff of Josh Prohibition at the time. I even used him as a pick base. He's an independent wrestler. And as Josh Generation, apparently I was in a Fed with Blackbeard the Pirate, who many, many, many years later I would hook up with again in UTA.
That's right. And he was at least at one point in the Discord, correct?
Yeah, he's been in the Discord. He listens to the show. He's a good guy. He was in International Championship Extreme Ice with me. Okay. And that was a cool Fed because it was the first time that I had been around really good writers and really long writers. Like everything was like novel form. It was a concept Fed. Everything took place in weird locations. Like they had a wrestling ring in a mansion for a rich guy, and then they had a wrestling happened in this ice rink. It was
chilling.
It was crazy, and it was kind of fun because you could use different stuff. So it was a lot of fun. That was the first one that I fully really dove into. And then from there, Josh Generation had a couple good runs. Hardcore Wrestling Association, HWA, with Anthony Gundacker was the Fed head of that one. That was way back in the day. I had a good run there. I had fun. And then I took the longest break in EFedding history, maybe.
2 months?
Yeah.
We've noticed a trend, folks.
2007 until 2014, so like 7 years.
Okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of 5 to 6, 7 year gaps, especially when you kind of come of age, kind of like your brother found girls and
exactly like, right,
out of here.
I was 17 and then got into high school, had fun. Then I got out of high school, got married, joined the army, got out of the army quickly, and got back into EFedding after I got my first divorce.
There you go. I mean, her loss.
I do this in chat too. I say first divorce like I've had a second. I've not had a second divorce.
I mean, not yet.
I got divorced.
Not yet. You're still EFedding. I mean, this time.
I got divorced and I got bored and said, I wonder if EFEDs are still a thing. And I Googled it. Sure enough.
Still right here.
And I created the character of Mikey Unlikely.
So that's probably Like everything,
Well-
everything before is like kind of a lead up to, I'd assume. The creation of Mikey Unlikely kind of, I would think is like a big moment. Not that you know it at the time, but like from there, like how does the Mikey Unlikely character begin?
He started as Mikey Maverick.
Okay.
Was his name when I first came up with him, because I've always liked the name Maverick, and my son was almost named Maverick, but I was talked out of it. And so it was Mikey Maverick, and I just wanted to have a character that was more like me but amplified.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have something crazy, like that's what you always hear. A wrestler is this, but he's amplified at 11.
Yep.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to finally do that. I'm going to get out of this weird shit. And like Josh Generation was a punk rocker, Kid Wicked was an anarchist. I guess they were kind of the same thing.
You had a wheelhouse.
So I wanted to do something like more like me. And I'm cocky, I'm arrogant, but I wanted to be a good guy. So Mikey Maverick was like a just an all around good guy, young up and comer, and he just got out of wrestling school, blah blah blah. And so I tried to do the babyface thing with no background story. I'm just out of wrestling school, and I found that I lost it all the time. I was just getting back into it. And I was a much better writer now that I think 25 at the time, 26. I don't know how. No, that's not right. What year is this? 2020.
Math is hard.
Math is so hard when you're drinking, guys. I was like, 26, 27. So I come back as Mikey Maverick. I'm not having any luck. And when I was a little younger, after I just got out of EFedding the first time as a teenager, as a joke, I told my friends I was going to drop a rap album. And so I did. And it was, I made it at home. It was terrible. It was awfully produced. Nothing like the EFed podcast is today.
Post that.
So
album. Post that album. Chat. Post that album. Everybody in chat. Post that album.
No. That album doesn't exist anymore. So if it does, I don't have it. So we did this. I did this rap album, and my rap name was Mikey Too Likely. Obviously influenced by Scotty Too Hottie.
There you go. So
I was Mikey Too Likely. And I did a rap thing, and I had fun, and it was good. And my friends laughed at it, and I put it on YouTube, and I've since taken it off YouTube, so don't even try.
Hey.
So I put all this stuff on YouTube, and I had fun with it. And then when I got back to wrestling, I just said, okay, I'm just going to be Mikey Unlikely. Because I didn't want to be... Because everybody who likes wrestling would know that I stole from Scotty Too Hottie.
Yeah.
If I was Mikey Too Likely. So I just changed it to Unlikely, thinking people wouldn't guess, and that's how we got Unlikely.
Stumble into a great name.
Yeah, it worked out for the last longer than that, like 6 or 7 years now. I've been Mikey Unlikely.
So once you kind of hone the character, you obviously you hone the name. Where's he land first? I guess.
So yeah, when I came back and really got I tried a couple feds, it didn't work out. Whatever, I missed the deadline because I forgot that was a thing. I finally found Skyfire Wrestling, and I joined over there, run by Jay Jefferson at the time. Skyfire was a great fed. It was short-lived. I think it lasted, 8 months or a year. But I had a blast, and it was the first time that I got with the community, and I started talking to other people, and I enjoyed it. And I said, okay, I want to keep doing this with Mikey Unlikely. And his character at the time he was a one-hit wonder rap star. He had one song that went like top 100, but it was like number 75. And he was stoked, and he lived off of that fame, and he tried to, keep doing stuff, and nothing worked. So he went back to wrestling, where he got started as Mikey Maverick, but he never made it under that name. So now he's coming back as Mikey Unlikely. And he's going to use his fame to vault him into higher fame in wrestling. And so he comes in as a baby face, and he's always like, yeah, I had that song. And everybody's like, what song? And he just brushed it off, and he'd be a good guy, and it was fun. And then I was in Skyfire. I won some titles. I did well for the first time. And then they closed down, and I moved over to Visionaries of Wrestling, which was a short-lived fed. One of the guys in our chat, I was there as well, which is kind of cool that we hooked up again in the chat through the podcast. So Visionaries of Wrestling, yeah, they didn't last long either. I'm sorry, I didn't last long in Visionaries. I was there a couple months, had a good time. But then I was poached by one Mr. Ben Halcomb for Wrestle UTA. He hit me up. He said, hey, I read your stuff that you posted. I liked it. You should come right from my fed. And I went to his Fed and I saw posers and I saw the cool layout and I saw all the stuff that they're doing for their shows. They're doing poser shots for like moves for the wrestlers. And I was like, oh, this is where I got to be. Are you kidding me?
EFed eye candy.
It's exactly what it was. So he won me over with the graphics, and I left Visionaries and I joined Wrestle UTA. And that's where I really became friends with most everybody there. Had a great time. I lasted there for 2 years, and we had a great run.
That's awesome. So so after that 2 years though, is that when you kind of took up the reins for Ben?
Yeah, I'll cover some of the stuff in Wrestle UTA because I know people are going to want to hear about it, especially Will and those guys. So I was a babyface for a long time. We founded WTFC, which was my big stable. It was Mikey Unlikely, Bobby Dean, Doozer of the Egg Bandits, and Will the Thrill Haynes. Funny story, Pete was supposed to be in the group with the Second Coming, and then at the last second we switched directions and mutually agreed it wasn't a good fit. But Pete's still awesome. Buy Pete's book. We've been good friends ever since.
Valerian's Garden?
Chance, Legend of Valerian's Garden, available on Amazon. Buy Pete's book.
That's it.
So, yeah, WTFC, me, Bobby Dean, Doozer, and Will Haynes, and we went up against Dynasty, who was the big bad heel group in Wrestle UTA. And we did it for months. Guys had big matches against each other. We won titles. They won titles. We couldn't get the world title off of Dynasty. I constantly traded hands with the guys in Dynasty. It was crazy. And it was hard to get to. So I ended up needing, after WTFC, we were big. We had big feuds. After we got to a point where I needed to take a break, work was getting huge. I had gotten bigger responsibilities at work. I was dating someone more seriously, and I just needed to take a break from e-wrestling. I did. And then I came back 4 months later, after I got settled in, to Wrestle UTA again. And I turned Mikey heel, and he turned on all of WTFC. And it was a huge turn. I loved it. I couldn't have enjoyed it more. It was one of the more meaningful stories I've ever done. And then I went on to feud with Will Haynes for the rest of the year. And we had one of the biggest matches I've ever had at some pay-per-view. I've been drinking. We had a huge match. I think it was International Affair or Black Horizon, one of the two at Wrestle UTA. And it was awesome. It was so cool. And I was just like, every day I was so excited to write more of that match, more of the feud, and just write role plays against him and just work with him. It was so much fun. And then I quickly realized that what I was doing was angling. Yeah. Because everything we were doing, we were talking through as friends. And so eventually I was invited into... Hold on.
Got him.
Seth, you got to mute yourself, buddy.
Got him.
Okay. Eventually I was invited into Dynasty. I joined Dynasty. Mikey Unlikely did the evil shaking of the hands.
Shake hands.
Beat Will Haynes, Will Haynes beat me. The big baby face won at the end. And I realized I was angling. And so finally someone pitched me Defiance. And I said, what is Defiance? They said, it's angle fetting. I said, I don't know what that is. And they explained it to me. You work together with someone, you're writing the story, you're writing the matches, you're telling a story. I said, that sounds awful.
It sounds like the thing I'm doing.
Yeah, it sounds like so much more work. And they said, no, you just got to write segments and matches. You don't even need to role play. And I said, well, that's all I know how to do is role play. So long story short, I think it was Murr was already there. I'm trying to think who in Wrestle UTA was already there. Justin, obviously. So Def invaded. It was Justin Taylor, Bronson, or I guess Eric Dane, sorry. Eric Dane, Bronson Box, and some other Def guy. Jeff Andrews. There he is. And there was also a Howe invasion at the time, which I had just heard about Howe for the first time, with Mike Best, Colin, or Cecil Worth Farthington, and John Sector. And it was cool to have all those other feds in there, but everybody got real with their cliques, and everybody was like edgy against each other. And like Dynasty members were edgy against the Howe guys, and the Def guys were edgy against the Howe guys, and everybody was edgy against each other. And I didn't like Justin, and I told Murr, and I think it was Murr and Gary, who wrote Colton Thorpe, and then he was in Howl later on with Red and Ted. He was one half of Red and Ted. I told them both, you guys are just part of Justin's dick sucking club. Because all he ever did was praise Justin. Oh, your stuff is so good. Your stuff is so good. And it was good. I was just salty as fuck because I wasn't in his group.
Let me guess. That went over
It went over so well that Gary, Murr, and I all got into a side chat. We all worked it out. And for the first time, I became friends with Murr.
Game changer.
Game changer. Yeah. A friendship that lasts to this day. We've hung out several times. I traveled to London. We hung out in London for a week. He traveled to Chicago. We hung out in Chicago for a week. Just great friendship. We talk every day. He's a great guy. And it's awesome that, way back in 2015 or 2016, I built a friendship with someone that lasts to this day.
Well, before we get too far off of UTA, I feel it stands to mention that if you want more detail, like when I say more detail, I mean like way more detail, check out Will's interview. Which I believe is like 38 or 39. I
think it was 3 hours, 40 minutes in. You'll hear 6 hours dissertation on Dynasty. No, I'm just kidding, Will.
You would nearly get step by step everything that happened between Mikey and Will's little clicks there.
You really will. It's a great story. Love you, Will.
Well, okay. So anyhow, moving on from Will. Why? So UTA, we're not really done with there, right?
No, we're not done. Sorry. Yeah, I was in Dynasty. Did great things. Dynasty was a blast. They passed around the World Championship like it was jelly beans. It was fun. I didn't get to hold it until we went Angle because I'm not that great of a role player, and so. Basically, I was in UTA up until Ben decided to close it. But towards the end, and one of the benefits of being in Dynasty, not only was my big turn huge, but the very next week or 2 weeks later, another man turned and joined Dynasty, and his name was Jesse Fredericks Kendricks.
Oh.
And when Jesse... In it? All right, listen, yeah? When Jesse Fredericks Kendricks... Did I say that right? Yeah. When Jesse Fredericks Kendricks joined Dynasty, and he became a heel, we both felt like, hey, we're the new guys. We're the outcasts. Everybody else is big singles guys. Let's be a tag team. Mm-hmm. And we just got to talking. We hit it off. We have the same, sense of humor. Stevie's from London. I'm here. And somehow, some way, we just built this awesome friendship from, 6 hours away. And we started tag teaming. And every time we would get into a document and write our characters together, we would just cry laughing. The shit we would write would be so off the wall and so funny that I enjoyed it so much. And then we became the Hollywood Bruvs based on the Hollywood Blondes. And because, I'm so Hollywood, Mikey's a Hollywood guy and Stevie's English Bruv. So we're the Hollywood Bruvs.
It's perfect. I mean, I think anyone who's ever read anything y'all have done together, the chemistry legit leaps off the page. And I'm not even just, blowing you here. Like when I first came across y'all in Defiance, it stood out like crazy.
As far as role play goes, I would rather be known as a tag team role player with Stevie than anything else I've ever done because that's where I've had the most fun in EFedding. That's I've enjoyed the most of everything. I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now very, very, very much. But there is just nothing that compares to me and Stevie getting into a document and just laughing at each other.
100%. I mean, there's just something great about that not just camaraderie, but that dual creative outlet is something special.
It is. It's terrific. And we've tag team ever since. We've been off and on as he's gotten busy. We've had to take breaks as I've gotten busy. We've had to take breaks. We've both been together in Angle and role play. We just had a run in High Octane Wrestling as the Hollywood Bruvs. Had a great time in High Octane. I know there was some fun recently with the drama. It started as drama that quickly was squashed. For those of you who don't know, check out Scooshed. Biff Scooshed. Check out the YouTube channel. There was a little 10-minute interview me and Lee Best did where we scooshed the beef. As one Mr. Jack Hunter would say. Or no, Scoot Steuben, sorry.
Scoot Steuben, yeah.
Scoot Steuben. So, yeah, we squashed the beef. There was no real beef there anyway. Basically, I had a great run in How. It lasted about 8 months. Stevie and I won the tag team champions as the Hollywood Bruvs. We had fun. Ended up losing them to our friends, the Egg Bandits.
Hold on. It's rare I get to do this to you. We'll get there.
All right.
So I'm sorry. UTA. UTA's coming to a close, but you take it over. You run it for a while, right?
Well, UTA comes to a close, and we leave because I'm just out of it. So we leave, and what I do is I go to Boardwalk for one single match because the Hollywood Bruvs went to Boardwalk, Dynasty went to Boardwalk, and we had one match. And me and Kendricks faced a tag team of two females, which is not the issue at all.
Mm-hmm.
But we wrote two very, very good role plays, and they wrote one role play, posted it at deadline. It was short, and they beat us. And I couldn't. It was an injustice that cannot be reprimanded. It was my dignity was hurt.
I can't stands no more.
So we left Boardwalk as fast as we joined and said, "Hey, bruv, it's just not a good fit. Thanks, but no thanks." So we were out. I took a break from EFedding I'm sorry, I did not take a break. We left Boardwalk, and I said, "Okay, I don't want to role play anymore. What can I do? Everybody's been telling me about Defiance. I'm going to check it out." So I applied to DefianceWrestling.com, which you should also do over at DefianceWrestling.com because it's still over at DefianceWrestling.com. And if I haven't gotten it across, it's DefianceWrestling.com.
I heartily agree.
So I got turned on to DefianceWrestling.com from Andy Murray, from Gary, who was now my friend, from Justin, who I had learned to see past his demeanor. And I see in the heart of the guy who really loves wrestling, really loves to argue wrestling in a competitive and fun way. And he just sometimes comes off the wrong way. But
shout out to Justin. He's a good guy.
He is a good guy. I love Justin. And he's also in episode, I think, 5 of this podcast. So check out Justin's episode.
Yep, great episode.
So Justin's a good guy. I became friends with him. He's trying to get me to Defiance. So I join and I apply. And I was almost denied.
Ooh. Because
Defiance Wrestling is a vote system where when you apply, you have to get 4 more positive votes than negative votes from the roster. And I will say the ticket to get in is not whether your writing is good. The ticket to get in is whether or not, if we give you criticism on your application, you correct those issues and come back with a positive attitude, not my writing is the shit. I'm sorry that you can't see that. I'm leaving.
Oh yeah, 100%. Be admittable. Show that you are willing to adjust.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, you're just gonna get it anyway. There's just every once in a while people get, hey, there was this thing that we don't do that here, or is that okay? I felt like you should have, I don't know, told us more about the character here. I don't know. There are certain things.
Well, not to mention the biggest tripwire is the app still comes from the RP days, I think. And it's like, are you willing to write matches?
Yes.
It's like, well, we're Angle, so I mean, you have to be willing.
There are Angle feds apparently where staff just writes matches, and I didn't know that until after I started this podcast. But in Defiance Wrestling, you write your own matches. You tell your stories between your segments and your matches, and you write propaganda 100%. In between, which is your character development or your role plays,
and uncut and etc. But hey, this is not a Defiance commercial. You'll hear those right before you hear this interview.
So I joined DefianceWrestling.com, and after I was finally voted in, I think it was like a 9-5 vote or an 8-4 vote or something. It took me a minute to get in because everybody said, "Hey, you're a sports entertainer. We're a strong style fed. All we do is fight. You won't fit in here." And I said, "That's exactly why I want to be here. Mm-hmm. I want to stand out."
You saw that you'd be a great foil.
Yes, and I get my ass kicked.
That's a great heel for that type of fed.
And the big tweak I made to the character was in UTA, Mikey was athletic, he was fun, he was fast, he was a good wrestler. In Wrestle UTA, Mikey didn't know a wrist lock from a wristwatch. He's the worst wrestler on the planet. He's crafty, he's sneaky, he's conniving.
A true shit heel.
Yeah.
Front to back. There was a series where like JFK was, this is getting ahead, so you can hit me with we'll get there. But JFK was trying to learn to wrestle better, and there's this whole thing, and then all Mikey wants to do is he's like, yeah, we ran the ropes for a few minutes. It's frappe time. It's this random segment from, I don't know, 3 years ago that I'm remembering now, so great.
It's just, Kendricks was always the wrestler of the team, and he would try to get Mikey pumped up, and Mikey'd be like, wait, I know of this great party we can go to. We could do that, or we could do this.
He's JFK's distraction.
He was. And today it's the opposite. I mean, the last Howl run was completely the opposite, where JFK was the distraction, which was so much fun to write. But that's how we started, where in Defiance, where Mikey couldn't wrestle at all. He would just get by on cheating and hoping and praying Kendricks would cover for him. And I joined Def. I'm trying to think what happened first. I want to say after about a year, I became the Soher champion, the Southern Heritage champion, and had a really good lengthy run, which was, I think, at a record at the time,
at the time for sure,
at the time of something like 200 some odd days. Eventually, it was beat twice,
destroyed,
or 2 or 3 times. So it was cool to have at the time to be the longest reigning Soher. It was a lot of fun. I think I lost it to Billy, who was Elise Aries, foreshadowing to later. But had a lot of fun with Billy. Had a lot of fun with all my feud partners with the Soher. It was cool to hold a title in an angle fed for the first time and really dive into the style of an angle fed.
Point of order. No.
But
cool. Nah, you didn't lose it to Elise.
Who did I lose it to? Curtis Penn?
No. Cool. Dead air. I'm thinking. No. You. I don't remember because it was before Scott Douglas. But then you.
No. Sorry, I beat a female character. What was her name? English girl. I'm trying to think of her real name. Harmony. Thanks, Seth.
There you go.
Yeah, I beat Harmony for the title. She was champion for a short period. I beat her, and then I can't remember who I lost it to now. I thought it was Billy, but apparently not.
I'm not sure because there was
someone check the records.
Yeah, I gotta look back because we worked it to eventually once Scott Douglas got it from.
I'm looking at it right now.
Impulse.
I lost to Impulse. There you go.
Pete. Impulse dropped a stalker briefly. Impulse got a Impulse dropped a stalker, and then there was a 3-way, and Douglas won it from between the two of them, pinning stalker or not. No, I'm sorry, not stalker. Reaper.
Yep.
Creepy Justin.
They're all the same. So
there you go.
So I lost the title to.
Yeah, we need a Stevenspedia right there.
We sure do. Shout out to Stevenspedia. So I lost title to Impulse. Pete. That was a lot of fun working with Pete. I've worked with him many times since then. What else did I do in Defiance? Stevie and I teamed up. We won the tag team titles, the high octane. Wow. I'm all over the place, guys. I'm on beer 4. So, Tony, where you at?
Hold on. They got a whole in the chat here, the live chat. For anyone listening later, if you weren't in the live chat, what are you doing? But in the live chat, they've got a count of how many times you've said, I've been drinking, folks. So, hit him with it.
I've been drinking, folks.
There it is.
Oh, beer 9. Tony's got a deep lead on me. So, Stevie and I won the Defiance Tag Team Championships. That was a lot of fun. The Bruvs reunited. This is while we were part of the Sports Entertainment Guild. And let me explain the Sports Entertainment Guild.
Please do.
One Mr. Billy and Tom joined Defiance, wrestling.com. And when they did, I was highly offended by their application because I said they are the same character I am. It's exactly the same as my application. Are you guys fucking kidding me? I went to the staff like, are you kidding me? And so they went to Tom and Billy and said, hey, this guy feels like the same character. And they explained back that it's not the same character. It's just similar. And that we should all work together. And they suggested to me that we should all work together. And I said, no. And then they suggested we should all work together again. And I said, okay. And then the Sports Entertainment Guild, we started writing together. And it was just almost an extension of me and Stevie that we would get into those documents, those Google Docs, and we would make amazing, funny, hilarious shit. They came in as super fans of Mikey Unlikely, his Hollywood work, his B movies, they came in as C actors, and they just wanted to use him to springboard their Lake Placid 6 movies to fame.
When I first jumped into Def, like the SAG really stood out so crazily.
Yeah, we tried to stand out, and we had a lot of fun. We used Klein as well, the guy with the box on his head.
There you go.
We had so much fun. We had shenanigans every week. We would just build and build and build. Stevie and I became tag team champions. Those guys ended up becoming tag team champions of Pop Culture Phenoms. We had a great run together, and it was so much fun writing with them every week. And eventually, one of us, I think we all took a break, or we had to take the time off, and SEG split up. I'm sure it was me that took the time off, but SEG ended up splitting up, and I think we turned on them, or they turned on us. And then Soccer beat us for the tag team titles.
So kind of the bridge at some point between UTA and Def was the Invasion.
Yes. So, okay, while I'm in Defiance, at some point, I'm approached by Ben Halcomb again. Hey, I'm restarting to wrestle UTA. It's going to be an angle fed. Would you like to be a handler? And I said, fuck yeah. I had a great time in UTA as a role player. I wouldn't mind joining again as an angle, because now that I've been doing it for like 2 years.
Hey, now you've adjusted to that
mindset,
or that resume. Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's do it. So Ben made me, as a former star of Wrestle UTA, made me the first world champion in his angle fed. I won the opening tournament to win the world title, and it was awesome. I had fun for the first 4 shows, and then Ben had to leave, and I was world champion for the first time, a legitimate run, even though it was an angle fed, and it was over after less than 30 days. So he said, hey, if you want to take it over, here's the passwords and everything. And I said, absolutely, I do.
Hey, there you go.
I've never been a Fed. I've never been a Fed head up to that point in a serious role. I've been on staff a couple times. I've written plenty of matches in Defiance. So I said, I'll give it a shot. So I took it over, and Wrestle UTA is an angle Fed. I ran it for roughly a year. And honestly, I had a lot of fun. I don't think it was a memorable run. A lot of people are telling me otherwise recently on our interviews, which is it's good shit. It is. It means a lot to me. It feels good that they remember my run as Fed head. But to me, it was just frustration, and I felt like I had to keep up with everybody else, and I felt like everybody was good writers, but maybe I wasn't good enough to run the Fed. So the whole time I'm just like constantly trying to, I don't know, keep up, I guess is the word I was looking. And but at the end, after about a year, I just couldn't do it anymore, and I shut it down. And as I was considering shutting it down, I had read that, hey, Defiance is low on people. We're running low on handlers, and I'm like, well, shit, I'm running an angle fed. I love Defiance. They're an angle fed. Why don't we just merge the two? So I approached Justin, who was running the Fed at the time, and I think James was also heavily involved in the staff, if not running it.
Now that was at that point, because I was already on staff. It was and Justin was involved, obviously, but it was Brunk.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Brunk was the Fed head at the time, and Justin was the owner.
Yeah, and Murr and Pete were doing the day-to-day, and then I had just come on.
Backstage stuff. You're doing the roll-in job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, which had previously kind of been the Lynn's job. Lynn's had just departed, and then I was like, "Hey, I'll help with this one thing," and they're like, "Well, your staff." Thanks, Murr.
So quickly, I talked to Justin. He got me hooked up in the staff chat, and I proposed my pitch, and everybody's like, "Yes, let's bring all the handlers over." And I was like, great, I'm going to shut my Fed down tomorrow. And they're like, well, hold on. let's do an angle. And so we did the Invasion. I was psyched to do it. Justin, me, Murr, and a few others. Brunk definitely was heavily involved. I want to say Bronson Box. We're all involved in the planning.
Evan was still in there, yep.
We were all involved in the planning of the invasion of Wrestle UTA into Defiance. And it was great. It was a great invasion for one arc.
Yeah. I was brand new to staff, and I just kept my mouth shut as I saw things that were going to deteriorate. Because I was like, I don't have I don't have the oomph to say anything here. And yeah. That one arc was well planned, well plotted.
When Wrestle UTA was going over, we were great. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, no. Again, it was the plotting and the planning, and I think anything in e-wrestling, like and not to hype myself up or whatever, but that influenced how I've taken on Def since then. Def is in Defiance, because that big stuff. The reason Def, for what I had saw coming in, was in like a little bit of a roster issue, was because of a huge tournament they did.
Yep.
And then we do the invasion, and it's great. It really, you're right, it really was for that first arc. So it's like, man, this looks too big. And that's how I view everything in e-wrestling. Like, if it's too big, it might just legit be too big. And people will lose interest. Like, you can't go too long term, you know?
Yep. And we learned that. We were playing 3 arcs. 1 arc in was great. Second arc was and third arc ended in War Games, which
this is me and you.
Brian and I can tell you, we wrote 90% of that guy. And that was about 25 pages a match, or if not more, maybe 35. It was.
I'll never write another one again.
No, we will never write another War Games. Don't ask for one, Defiance. It's over.
Never.
So we did the War Games match. The invasion ended. Wrestle UTA lost. Defiance wins. They retain all of their gimmicks. Yeah, then what happened, Brian? What did I do next?
So this is the only part without notes. Hi, Paul. That I know what's going on. There was so we did. I forget how it all really came about, but Scott Douglas, my character in Defiance, was a Soher coming out of the invasion. We did the gimmick. We did the Scott Hall, or we did the Razor Ramon HBK thing. You came back with the Ho-Her.
Yes,
the Hollywood Heritage title.
Yes, the old championship that I had worn. Brian was wearing the actual championship, and I challenged him, put them both up into a ladder match, and we'll go at it.
Yeah, and then we did that, and then I think we talked about that, running Mikey unlikely out of the Fed, but then there was the talks of closure.
Yes.
So that changed everything. We all had to pivot, and yeah, the Defiance was going to close.
And then our favorite Saints stepped up.
There you go. If I remember correctly, Mikey had litigated Defiance into bankruptcy.
Yes, that was the storyline for the closing. Between the Wrestle UTA deal and suing them constantly while fighting them, we litigated them into oblivion.
Yeah, we had to pivot again because, all right, well, it's not closing because Ford and myself came to, we can carry this thing on. I think you took a break not long after that, though. I think you unlikely left. He was ousted. He was hoisted by his own petard, as they say.
Yeah, there was. I don't know if this correlates to the same time period. Maybe I'm just drunk. What count is that, guys?
10.
But there was a match with Brunk and Murr. It was a triple threat match for the fist, which Murray was holding at the time. And Mikey had leveraged that he would leave Defiance if he lost, and that he had utmost assurance that he would win because Brunk was on his side at the time. And Brunk turned on him.
FTV 100.
And Brunk turned on him mid-match and put him away through a table, and then tried to win the fist himself, but did not.
Yep. Yeah, that was FTV 100. That was supposed to be the close of the whole thing.
Yep.
But then we added the extra bit at the end.
Oh, okay, so there was more.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, you guys are running Defiance. After a break, I come back, and quickly, I'm in the world title picture, the Fist of Defiance picture. And
well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you want to tell that right quickly. I mean,
listen, quickly.
We were shit on nepotism a little bit earlier.
So I was quickly the world champion. No, I'm kidding. I was quickly in the world championship picture. The Fist of Defiance is the top title in Defiance.
I put it in a join form. Brian handed me the title the next day.
So I lost my first 5 attempts at winning the championship. I faced various champions over the years. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I want to say Stuvens. I want to say Cale Murray. I want to say, I don't know.
Definitely Kayla at 100.
Yep.
The time period to come back, it would have been Stevens. We probably gave him a defense.
Kendricks beat me while he was the Fist because I was ready to do that feud.
Yeah. He came back for that little championship run. It was a good run.
So, there was a handful of times where I lost the championship bid because my character's a heel, and I feel like he should build, and then lose. And that's always been my philosophy as a heel. And so that's what I would do. Every time I build up to a championship match, I would make it as serious as possible and then lose. And finally, you guys told me that, hey, next arc, you're going over. You're going to be the champ. And this is after working with Seth for an arc already where Oscar Burns was the champion. And he had retained the title over Mikey, and we had a lot of fun. And then you guys confirmed to me, and I had some idea beforehand, but you guys confirmed that, yep, Mikey, you're up next. You're going to be the next Fist of Defiance. And so,
well, and I mean, it stands to say, and this is also is a compliment to you, but also just how we operate. If Seth is still in the chat, he may cooperate, but it 100% is participation, quality, meeting deadlines to a reasonable degree. Like it's we're all, the median age is higher here. It's not that tough to do it, and you do it to a high degree, which you had been many years past that. Why not, man? Like it was time.
Yeah, I think it took me 4.5 years to win the Fed, something like that. I've been in the Fed since 2016, and I just won it, I think, early this year.
Yeah, it was a little while. Yeah, well, because you took that break as well, but yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So, working hard for a long period of time, I earned the top championship. I've held it now, and this is what I consider my first world championship run in EFedding. I mean, the other one was handed to me twice, and I don't count those. So, the way I see it, this is the first time I earned a heavyweight championship. I'm excited about that. I've tried to take it as seriously as I can. I've been the champion now for 209 days off the top of my head.
Holy shit, we should have been taken off.
5th longest reigning Fist of Defiance, I'll have you know. I've been champion for 200 plus days, and I've enjoyed my run in Defiance so much. That's where I've formed so many friendships with EFedders, and I've had such a great time in Angle Feds, learning about the game and now thriving in the game in DefianceWrestling.com. And
there you go.
It's home. I'll probably dabble other places for the rest of my time in EFedding until I decide to open my own Fed. DefianceWrestling.com is where I will be. That brings us up to now. I mean, I mentioned earlier I had a High Octane Wrestling run. I was there 8 months, February or March of this year until recently. I had a great time. Loved it. Recently, Stevie got too busy. Had to take some, it was a weekly role play Fed. He had some real life stuff going on and had to take a break. And I decided, I wasn't trying to have a singles run. I was a Hollywood Bruv over there. And so I bounced as well. Fortunately, Stevie can handle the bi-weekly Defiance schedule. And I'm also helping him quite a bit with some of the stuff we're doing. So yeah, I'm glad to see he's still dabbling in the game. He's over at Defiance now. We had a great time in High Octane. Shout out to Lee Best, Mike Best. I have made a lot of new friends over there. I had a lot of old friends over there too, so it's cool to see. You hear a lot of rumors about the Fed, but I had a great time. High Octane Wrestling, one of the top roleplay Feds out there. Seriously, the competition is insane. The roster recently was insane. I was challenged every single week when I went over there. It was so much fun. Between Eric Dane, between Max Kale, between Mike and Colin, between Brett and Ted, between Lindsay and Dan Ryan, we faced so many good tag teams. It was insane. Every week you were up against legends in the game, and it was intimidating.
Hey, Roland's over there. Tom is over there.
Yeah, there's so much. There's so much crossover. It's crazy. 24K is now in Defiance. It was recently in How, and every single one of us would recommend How to anybody who's looking for a roleplay Fed. So,
100%. Honestly, if for no other reason, it's the only one I could ever think of.
Also, EWC, the number 4 life.com. Check out Extreme Wrestling Corporation. Great Fed, longtime sponsor of the show, great supporter. EWC4life.com.
I misspoke. EWC is my favorite. So that kind of wraps up the interview section. Is there anything else you want to touch on that we kind of roll past or missed?
No, that pretty much sums it up. I'm the greatest. That's just the way it is. Christy, you hate to see it, but
I hate to see it. Mikey loves to see it. Christy, you hate to see it.
That's right.
And that's just based on the sexual advances Mikey's made toward Christy.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take a break, Brian. Can you throw some tunes on?
Which shout out to EWTs, which is us, who's provided the music tonight.
EWTs.com, EFedTees.com. If you'd like a custom t-shirt for your singles, tag team, stable, EFed, whatever, funny sayings, your motto, whatever the hell it is. If you want a custom t-shirt, hit us up, EFedTees.com.
Man is a shill machine.
It's great. I got some shirts the other day. They are top quality. I swear to you, it's better than what you're going to buy at PWTs.com. I've bought from PWTs many times. I enjoy their look, but the quality of shirt is not the same.
It's not the same, bud. All right, so we're going to do the Twitter questions. Mikey, are you ready?
Oh, I guess so. I'm so surprised.
You have no idea what these are. Although you probably have a better idea than I do. I haven't seen this. All right, so first up, this is from Madman Zelensky. What in God's name possessed you to do a podcast? Fair question.
Fair question. Honestly, what possessed me to do a podcast? Long story short, I was in Defiance chat one, and I said, who wants to watch old wrestling? Let's just get in our own group chat. Let's watch some old wrestling and just the stuff we watched when we were kids. Let's watch it over again. And Brian says, I'd be down for that.
Oh, yeah.
And so did a couple other people. And so we made a little and then we kept on talking about it. And I don't know if it was me or you or somebody else said, what if you recorded it when you were talking about it?
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, somebody suggested it, but before that, I think what led to it is we started doing it, but we were having there was a time, not time difference, but there was when we could talk about it and have time to talk. It was a little bit, so we were it was a little stressed when we were. Because me and you were the only ones actually in a chat talking about it.
Yep. So we'd pick a random show and we'd watch it and we'd talk about it and we'd have fun and we'd laugh. And long story short, someone suggested we record it or we talk about it on air. And so the Atomic Dropcast was born. We decided we're going to watch 97 wrestling start to finish. And you can check out the atomicdropcast.com. We did it for, 45, 50 episodes. And
somewhere in there.
And eventually I want to get back to it. I love it. It was so much fun. I think we edited too much and made it too labor intensive and then kind of fell out of it. But I think we could have so much fun with it. But atomicdropcast.com was the first podcast I'd ever done. And when we stopped doing that, there was quite a break. I want to say 3 or 4 months, usually my EFed break time. And I told Brian, I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting another podcast. It's going to be about EFEDs. And Brian's like, I think that's a great idea. And I said, can you help me? And he said, yeah, I'll build you a site. I'll just steal the Atomic Dropcast site and I'll copy and paste it. And so,
it'll be easy for me.
And so that's what we did. And Brian showed me all about, he gave me server space to do it because he had some. He showed me how to work the website. He showed me how to upload episodes. So I started trying to do this by myself. And after Brian helped me set everything up, but he gave me logos and everything else. And so I tried to produce it and do it myself as my own little project. And I think for the first, 25 episodes, it is just me. And then Brian took over the producing and became part of staff. And I just said, hey, listen, I'm starting to get some advertising money from to have you produce or be involved because you've already helped so much. And quickly we became a great team. Brian's producing and made the show so much better. The sound quality is better. The theme song, I was getting in trouble with YouTube over rights of the music I was playing. It was a mess. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the first things. I mean, other than things I would just do, by the point you were doing this, I'd come out there for the WrestleCon thing, and then back for your wedding, and like we are, I consider you a friend, etc. And like,
Yeah,
you're like, yo, I want to do this. I'm like, yo, that's a great idea. Like, I think I told you, like, I think you found a hole in a niche market. Like, go for it.
yeah, and that's right. I mean, as many of you may know, Brian and I have built a good friendship. I was on a sales trip down in his neck of the woods, and he said, "Hey, let's hang out." So we met up at a bar, had a couple of drinks together, and he said, "Come hang out." Went back to his place, got real kinky. No, I'm kidding. Went back to his place. We hung out most of the night, had a good time. I ended up, I considered him a buddy after that.
But folks, as you all know, when it comes to anything online, you never go to a second location.
Never go. I learned that lesson with Brian.
He was like, "Hey, my per diem's out." I'm like, "Well, cool. I got liquor in my house that I don't want to spend any more money either."
There you go. That's kind of what it came down to. And so Brian, I had a big dog that I love, Kane. Awesome dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I spilled his ashtray all over his couch. And yeah, right. and then me and Brian had a good friend. And so built on that, when I ended up getting married, or no, that's before that, Atomic Dropcast, we tried to promote it. We tried to put some money into it.
We tried to take it seriously.
We did. We really did. And we went to a WrestleCon, which was down here or up here in Columbus, Ohio, and went there. We did the show. We handed out stuff and had fun, and we had a great time, but it didn't help the show one iota.
Not one bit.
And we gave away shit. We put money into it. Brian flew up here, and it did nothing for us. So
it was fun. You know what? At the end of the day, it was an excuse to come up.
It was, and we got to hang out for like 4 days, and we had a blast. And Brian's flight was canceled, and we got to hang out extra time. So it was,
yeah, exactly.
It was great. So Brian and I built a friendship, and then when I got married last year in 2019, I told Brian, "Hey, I expect you to be here. Here's an invite to the wedding. Here's the glitter that's going to fall everywhere."
Everywhere. You still got a glitter bomb in your future self.
So I invited Brian to the wedding, and Brian, being the good friend he is, flew up here, and obviously we've been great friends, and he became part of the staff here on the EFed podcast, and we've built it into this fun thing.
The first thing I did was a theme song, and just because you having trouble with the YouTube copyright things or whatever, and I was happy to do it, but going into it, I was like, man, I've produced for years, but I'm super bad at playing notes, and I just sample things. And earlier on when we played it, everyone seemed to really dig the theme.
Well, I'm here to tell you, Brian, that I love the theme. I think it's legit. It's so much fun, and every time I hear it when I'm in the car, not only does my bass reverberate because the bass is out of this world, but it gets me amped up, and I'm excited. So it's a great theme. Thank you, Brian, for making it. I think the chat would agree that it's fun.
Yeah, they certainly did. I wanted to point out to Fuzz, who was still asking how much to host. It is his fault that I came out as producer, because he, as anyone who listens to the episodes knows, he threatened your life if you did not create a Patreon.
That's true. The Patreon was actually Fuzz's idea. I was hesitant. He even suggested the first time, and I was like, no. Why would I do that? I'm not going to take your guys' money. I mean, if you're going to advertise on the show, sure, it's $5 for a commercial. Then I'm going to split with Brian, so I'm going to make $2.
Even before that, like I came on after post Patreon.
I don't think so. Was it?
Yep. Yeah. Well, a little bit before, but I remember you hitting me up. You're like, "Hey, should I do? I'm being pushed to make a Patreon. Convince me."
Yeah.
And I sent one message. You're like, "All right."
Between you, Fuzz, Rick, and everybody else pushing me to do it, it was. I'm glad I did. Obviously, it's produced some income for the podcast. It's helped me bring you on staff. And so everybody knows, straight up, Brian and I split profits 50-50 on everything.
And it ain't much, but you know what it does do, though. I mean, for anyone who cares, outside of my my day job, I do a lot of side work. It does that little bit of funds gives me the rationalization. Be like, all right, I can put all this aside. I'm gonna work on this now.
And not only that, but it's built into something where for the first time in my life, I'm getting paid to do something I love.
100%.
And it's not a lot of money. I mean, I think I make $10 an episode. And it's not a lot, but it's great though. I appreciate every single person who donates, every person who gives them the Patreon, every advertiser we've had, because it's motivated me to do more. It's motivated me to try to be better at this. And it's been a lot of fun. All of that for one question.
Right? Who do you want to interview that hasn't gotten on the schedule yet?
This could give me some heat probably on Twitter machine, but there's a guy on Twitter I follow all the time that I love. And maybe he's on there under a different name. And that's the problem with so many people on so many different handles. But Hollywood HUD, formerly of 4CW.
Okay.
I think his Twitter is hilarious. I don't know anything about him or his history, but I think he is hilarious, and I would love to have him on the show sometime. I hope he gets on the interview list. I know it's a year out, but it would be a blast. That's off the top of my head. Who else? I'd love to get Brian on for a handler interview. Because we've only done the Defiance one, so I'd love to interview you on your history in EFEDs, because
that was pre kind of
the format. Yeah, it was your episode 2. I mean, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So I'd love to have Brian on and talk about his history, because before Defiance, I didn't even know who the fuck he was.
No one did.
All right, K9, calm down. So I'd love to do that. Other than that, Will Haynes. The infamous Jason. You never go full Jason.
Never go full Jason. Never go full Bus.
Just because he and I had that great feud that played such a pivotal part in me loving this hobby, I'd love to talk to him about it one more time and go over it. I know we had a little salty breakup at the end, but we're men. Let's punch each other and get over it.
Yeah. Let's be manly men.
Manly men. We are men. Get the new 24K shirt over at efedtees.com. I know I did.
There you go. Quality shirts, super soft. They're like butter.
They are. They're so soft. It's unreal. Even my wife loves her shirt. How about that? She loves the Frap Life over at efedtees.com. So good. I love that. It's a great original design by the way, Brian is the primary designer. I want to say 99% of the designs on the site are Brian's. Billy is getting involved, and more are going to be his moving forward. So excited to see what's going on at EFed Tees.
I mean, other than if it's somebody else, obviously we accept designs.
Yep.
If you have complete and utter rights, we've had one problem, we're going to take one down. So
yeah, someone did not
have your rights.
Someone did not have the rights to their photo they submitted. So have the rights. You must own the photos you submit, the graphics.
100%.
Come on, guys.
You worried about getting heat about who you want to interview. Here's the heat question from Madman Zelinsky. I said his name 3 times prior. I can't now. Who do you not want to interview?
Well, it was. Who did I want to interview was Joe the Boss CWF so bad, because I need him so much more than he needs me. Unfortunately, he's grieving, and he's going through some things. No, he's not. He's not. And no, I'm kidding. I really did want to interview him, because I wanted to see the questions that the Twitter crowd would ask, because I knew it would be brutal. But who do I not want to interview? There's 2 or 3 people that shit talk the EFed podcast constantly that I've got no time for.
Well, hey, you know what? If you don't like it, you don't like it. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm not. You don't have to buy it.
Don't partake. We're not. It's not a prerequisite for anything anyone's doing here.
All right, we're starting EFed Tees. If you don't buy my shirts, you can't listen to the podcast no more.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Bobby Dean.
Oh, my boy.
Are you still pleased with the reception and the numbers, TEFP, as the cool kids call it, put up each week?
I mean, I was at a point when I started the podcast, I expected 20 people to listen 1 or 2 times. And then maybe 5 people. The fact that we at one point had 200 to 300 per episode was awesome. And that was in like the 10, I don't know, like the 5 to 12 stretch. And then kind of, I think the people who were just curious kind of fell off, and the real podcast listeners kind of just kept on going. And now we're at a point where we're at about 150 between YouTube and all the apps per episode. And that's an average across the last 20 episodes or so. And I am so stoked that many people listen to our shit show each and every week.
100%.
I can't believe it. I mean, like I said, I expected it to be my friends in Defiance. That was it. And it's grown and grown.
Yeah, Fuzz just posted up efedtees.com. That's where you should go, 100% people, if you have not already.
Or you can go to efedpodcast.com and go to the pod shop, where we also have some t-shirts available.
There you go.
Well, also, thanks, Matt Loaf, for recently purchasing your EFed podcast t-shirt. Appreciate that so much.
Ooh.
I was rocking the hoodie, just the two-tone hoodie, which I think is sweet, just the other day.
That hoodie is great.
Now that fall weather is here, I can bust out the hoodies again. I'm so excited.
Which, by the way, EWTs.com. New hoodies. If you want a hoodie, you got a design, you need a design.
5BW hoodie is up.
It is.
5 Boroughs. Check them out. They got a new hoodie up that is bomb. I might have to cop one of those myself. We also got the
Defiance.
We also got the Defiance to the Death, the new Defiance hoodie up. Awesome design by Brian. And we got the Mikey Unlikely underwear. Don't forget to get your Mikey undies over there at EFed.com.
Your under regions are not cuddled by Mikey Unlikely. How are you ever going to get heat?
If you wear the t-shirt and you don't feel close enough to me, put on the underwear. EFedtees.com.
This is back to Booby. Do you have any plans to expand the show into other fields / topics?
Yes. I've been planning on expanding the show into YouTube for the entirety of the show, and have done almost nothing towards that fact. So, no, in reality, I've acquired a camera. In reality, I've acquired a new microphone. In reality, I've acquired a green screen from Brian. In reality, I've set up a desk in front of a green screen in order for me to possibly do the show. I've also fed tea while I do the show so I can promote the brand.
EFed Late Nights with Mikey Unlikely.
I am so ready to do this. The only thing I need to figure out next is how to edit video. Brian, I'm going to rely on you as my producer to know how to do that as well.
Yep. I just need you to film it properly, and we're money. So, so that's other fields. Any other topics?
So YouTube is coming. And recently I've explored some other ideas, but I have no idea where they'll take me.
In UTA, what was more fun? WTC or that other faction you joined that didn't include me? This is still coming from Bobby Dean.
The more fun faction, the more silly fun was WTFC. I had a blast writing and doing fun stuff and writing a face comedy character. And then as Dynasty, though, I was taken more seriously than I ever had been. I had a bigger push than I'd ever gotten before. I felt it elevated me and my writing to a new height. And so I would say overall, Dynasty helped me more, but WTFC was more fun.
Moving on. So Bobby Dean's last question of this post.
Oh.
Can I join 24K?
He recently asked me that in a DM too. And I will just say that we are currently considering our fourth member. We have our eyes on some subjects, and soon it will be revealed.
There you go.
Love you, Bob.
All right. All right, so then we get to Bobby's next set of questions.
All right.
Have you muted anyone in the TEFP Discord?
Absolutely not. I have not muted anybody in Discord. Twitter is a whole nother question.
Now, and to add to the answer, Mikey's told me, hey, mute this guy. No, I'm kidding. All right, so he follows up. Do you enjoy being a Fed head in Defiance or UTA more?
I've not been the Fed head of Defiance. I've never have been. I was a part of staff at one point. That was prior to my winning of the heavyweight championship. I've never been staff and champion at the same time.
You were more top lead staff of Defiance and the Fed head of UTA at the same time, given the transition and
I was heavily involved in the creative of Defiance for several arcs while the invasion was taking place. Yes. So I was put into a high position. But what did I enjoy more? Wrestle UTA was fun because I had total control over everything. I could do what I wanted. And by total control, what I did was I let everything they wanted. I just assigned championships and who was going to move where depending on the work that was being done.
And in Defiance, you pretty much ended up in total control too, because it was just me and you at the end there.
Yeah, by the time that the invasion had ended, most of the veterans had left, and Defiance was like leaning towards shutting down. As we had stated earlier, Brian and Tom took over, and I was still heavily involved in creative. Yeah, that was probably 2 years ago now.
Yeah, well, I'd say too. I think your first exodus from Defiance and the hobby for a break was that War Games. It wore
us out. Yeah, it was terrible. I hated writing a match that was that long because I just wasn't. Everybody else wasn't invested. So it was hard to be invested myself. And we did it because it was our obligation and our story, and
we're committed to it.
We were the top guys, so we had to do what we had to do. But I'm glad I did because it propelled me to a place where I could be a heavyweight champion later and write the main events for pay-per-views.
There you go. All right, so if you could bring any, say 5 people / characters to Defiance, who would they be and why? It feels like a loaded question, given
that the Egg Bandits are like 5 guys.
Oh no, I wouldn't even think that. I was thinking more given 24K coming over.
Yes. So I recently got the guys, so they don't count.
Coming back, not coming.
I'm not going to count Stevie and Murr and Jay. Shout out to those guys though. Some of my best friends in the entire business. That we don't. It's not really a business. You know what I'm saying?
We're all the boys in the business.
All the boys in the back. So shout out to those guys, but 5 characters I'd want to bring to Defiance that aren't. Is that what the question is?
Yes.
Okay, so it's handlers or characters. I'm good with that. Fuzz is number 1 on that list. I've been trying to egg him on a little bit. So I'd love to bring in Fuzz. I'd love to see him do Angle and try our game because I think he's awesome. He's been a great addition to the Discord. He's been a great OG. He's secretly a moderator in the chat. Oops. And much, much more. So Fuzz is my guy. I love him to death, and I hope to see him in Def someday. Who else do I want to see in Defiance? Other good, it sucks because it's all going to be from the TFP Discord because they're good friends, and I've built friendships from the show. I would love to see Rick Ridiculous, and and I've been talking to him about it, and I've been egging him. And I'd love to see Bobby Dean back. He's a good friend. I'm just going to say my friends. I would love to see all my friends in Defiance. Bobby Dean, Rick Ridiculous, Fuzz. I'd love to see some old UTA characters. I'd love to see Bronson Box back full force. I'd love to see, Eric Dane back in Defiance. I'd love to see so many, Mike Best in Defiance. I mean, there's just so much. I love EFedding, and there's everywhere you go, there's different corners, there's different pockets of just good handlers.
100%. Who have been your top 3 interviews so far?
Ooh. In terms of my opinion, I hate to not name anybody.
Yeah.
Like, that's a question to ask me in a DM. No, I'm kidding. I mean, again, it's going to be my friends. My favorite was Murr because we just had a great rapport and it went off well and had a huge, numbers. Everybody watched it. My favorites was Bobby Dean because we just cried laughing the whole time at all the stupid shit we used to do. And everybody said they loved that episode. I enjoyed talking to Will because we have so much history. Jay recently, the Perfection episode. The Perfection episode was so much fun.
Will was garbage. He knows it.
Roland and Ross were so much fun getting to know them on a more personal level because prior to that, I knew they were good guys and they were the nicest people in the universe, as the Canadians they are. But I didn't expect to just be like instant
talk to the same person,
instant friends with both of them.
They're both fantastic, but I'm not. Much like Seth is every character in Def, Roland and Ross are the same person.
But they are. But I also loved like the controversial episodes. I loved the Mike Best episode. I loved the Eric Dane episode. I loved the ones everybody talked about. I enjoyed interviewing Megan after she had interviewed me 5 years
Dwayne.
ago. There was Dwayne's episode, which it was there. Love you, Dwayne. So yeah, no, there's so many that I've enjoyed. There's certain people that, you know, I've picked up a Skype call with. I'd never talked to them in my life, and we just had a great rapport and had fun. The one that just released today with Haas,
Yes.
Gabriel, Ohio. I felt like we had a great rapport, and it was just fun to talk to him. And that's what's exciting about this is I just have so much fun talking to so many people.
He was surprising to Gabriel, Ohio, and then be, you know,
he's an English guy, yeah, and he's Gabriel, Ohio, which is where I live. Fun stuff.
Lexi Gold.
Oh, Lexi,
your shows are so incredible to listen to.
Thank you.
I appreciate the amount of effort you put into each of them.
That's Brian's effort. Thank you, Brian.
So I would like to know is what are your goals / your hopes to accomplish for the podcast? Like I'm guessing what she means. What are your overall goals moving forward, etc.? Because you've already accomplished a lot. You're kind of the Vince McMahon of EFed podcast.
That's what you call me behind the scenes. Vinny Mike.
Vinman. McMahon.
So goals. My goal for the EFed podcast, and this is in the large scale of things, is practice. I enjoy broadcasts so much. I've enjoyed these 2 podcasts. Me and Brian have done so much. I would love to have as a hobby or a side job. I would love to announce football. I would love to commentate football, whether it be like a high school football team, whether it be a radio or TV broadcast. It's not just practice because I love EFedding. I love writing about it. I love talking about it. But large scale, I would love to have an outside job doing something over podcasts, broadcasts, radio.
One could say kind of a tennis player's approach.
One could say it. One could say that. For me, this is experience. For me, it's a great time. For me, I found a niche, a hole in the hobby that I could fill with a podcast that, I'd listened to EFed Gorillas in the past. I had listened to the EW After Party. I had been a part of 1 or 2 of those shows in the past and had a great time. Yeah. And I decided, that none of those are going on right now. None that I know. I've heard of Feds having their own podcast for their shows, but what if I just did one that covered everything? And here we are.
Gabriel, Ohio.
Oh, the man. Episode 47. Check it out. EFed.
He says, scenario, : Oh,
I love this one.
That's the punctuation, not the anatomy. You are the head of creative and have final say. You have been given 3 ideas. You must pick. He says bin one. Oh, bin one. That's right. He's English. Bin one. You got trash one. Yeah, put one in the bin. Use one and fix one.
Okay.
For another day. Justify it. So number 1, finger poke of doom, Hogan and Nash.
Okay.
Number 2, Fiend with Rollins, Hell in a Cell, a whole red gimmick.
Okay.
3, Undertaker losing to the Kali Chop.
Okay. All right. This is easy for me. You're binning the Fiend to Seth Rollins finish because it's the worst finish in wrestling history. You can't disqualify someone in a fucking cell. This is unreal. Please, for the love of God, someone explain this to me that makes sense because it is the worst thing I've ever seen in wrestling. It made me laugh at wrestling and turn it back off. Okay. Now that we got the bin out of the way, next I have to use one and save one for a better date and explain it.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to use the Kali Chop. Because I think it's completely justifiable that a guy who's 7'3", 400 pounds could chop you in the head and knock you the fuck out. I'm about realism in wrestling, and I know if he hit me in the head, I would probably crumple like a ball. So I'm going to use that one. As far as the finger poke of doom, I'm going to bin it for another day and use it as a heel turn for a face character so that he can turn with the finger poke of doom.
There you go. Expert answers from an expert EFed
Angle guy.
provocateur.
Oh, provocateur.
So next up, we got two left from Twitter. Lizzie Hope.
All right.
At Hope Lizzie.
Yes.
Is Lizzie Hope versus Druck
Dorji.
Now I feel like you trying to read these Japanese names every week. Is Lizzie Hope versus Druck Dorji the feud of the year? Or what?
Or absolutely. So after I left Hal, I didn't want to do a singles run in a serious Fed and write Mikey Unlikely as a singles character. So I didn't write anything for a couple weeks other than Defiance. And I'd recently joined the GCWA. It's a fun Fed. It's a fun group. I joined as Druck Dorji. He is a Giant Gonzalez ripoff, 100%. I'm even using a little manager that represents Harvey Whippleman. That's his name. I've got a little manager, the professor, and he goes around telling people he found the Beast of Bhutan, the Tree of Thimphu, Dirk Dorji. He's from the base of the Andes Mountains, or the whatever mountains Mount Everest is on. I knew it before this podcast and these 6 beers now. Druck Dorji is a Giant Gonzalez ripoff. He's a terrible wrestler. He does a choke slam and a chop for a finisher. So
awesome.
I'm writing 400-word promos that end with one line from the 7-footer who can't speak English. So there you have it.
All right, so to round things out for Twitter, from Tyler Stevens, at Tyler Stevens 185. Tell me, how am I supposed to live without you now that I've been loving you so long?
You don't have to live without me. You can find me each and every week over at efedpodcast.com. Find me on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, anywhere else you find your podcast. You can also find us over at atomicdropcast.com, also available anywhere you find your podcast. You can also find us at efedtees.com, ewmerch.com, ewtees.com, where we offer the #1 source for EFed merchandise community-wide. You never have to live without me, even over at defiancewrestling.com.
So we're getting into the Discord questions.
Hey, you're not supposed to forget Stevie's question.
Oh.
Sorry, Fuzz.
Boo.
Yeah, there's a question mark at the end.
Jump into the Discord questions.
All right, let's do it. Thanks, guys, for submitting Discord questions.
Oh, so many.
First of all, this Discord is awesome. I used to think Wrestle UTA chat was the most lively place I'd ever been. TEFP Discord is legit lit, as Stalker would say.
All right, so let's go straight into
Megan, happy birthday, Megan.
first and foremost. Did you never? What? I'm gonna just syntax these sentences a little better for me. I'm a little intoxicated. Did you never had to knock on wood?
Oh. Have I ever never had to never ever?
Yeah.
How much
that's
would,
kind of what we're
would
dealing
Chuck chuck if Woodchuck could chuck wood? I would. Have I ever knocked on wood? Every time Brian tells me what's happening next arc, I knock on.
There you go.
So I know if I'm going to retain the title.
Who did you learn more about when you interviewed them?
Ooh, virtually everyone, which has been nice. Even people that I knew pretty well, like Murr and Stevie, who I've been friends with forever. Well, Stevie, not so much. Murr is a great example of someone who I was friends with forever, and I knew based on like Billy and other people that he was in GCW. And Murr's talked about it before, but I don't know what the fuck GCW was. So sit down and talk to him, about the feds he was in, the circles he was in. And there was literally 10 other friends of mine who were from those circles. It's cool to hear that stuff. It's cool my favorite question on the podcast to ask people, well, how did you find EFedding? I love to hear the weird way people found this hobby. So virtually every person I ask that to, I'm learning about them every single time. And I've heard every answer. I've heard for even like, who's your favorite wrestler? I've heard Chris Jericho. I've heard Kane. I've heard The Undertaker. I've heard Sting. I've heard Ric Flair. It's awesome to hear that everybody wasn't a Hulkamaniac. Everybody wasn't what I was. Not everybody loved D'Lo Brown, which is unbelievable to me.
I feel like you're strongly avoiding so many Shawn Michaels responses.
I am avoiding them.
Do you think the Bengals will win the Super Bowl?
Just one in my lifetime, Meg. Just one. Please. Just one. I'll be honest, guys. I've watched every snap since the Bengals season started. Joe Burrow is the fucking truth. He's better than Andy Dalton was through 3 games, I can already tell. But Joe Burrow is the truth. I hope he can catch up with AJ Green. I don't think we're anywhere near a playoff contender this year, but I'm hoping if we take another offensive lineman or 2, maybe a guard that can block, and maybe a corner and a defensive tackle next year, we'll be in good shape. So we're not far from contending. It just sucks being in a really hard division with Lamar.
Obviously, he's checking. All right, so who wins MVP in football this year?
Oh, MVP of the NFL? It's going to be tough. I don't think Tom Brady's going to win it this year. I think it's going to be Russell Wilson. The Seahawks are off to a hot start. He's been outstanding. He's a one-man show almost on that team with DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson's terrific. He's experienced. He's smart. Aaron Rodgers is also off to an incredible start, which I'd love to see. I love when they drafted a quarterback that he's just like, fuck you. I'm just going to tear this shit up. So Aaron Rodgers is having a great year. I'd love to see him win another one. Otherwise, it's got to be Russell Wilson, who's never even gotten the MVP vote, and he deserves to have won 1 or 2 in the past. Thanks for the questions, Meg. That was fun.
Cat Pasadena.
Yes, my guy. I love this guy. I'm so glad he joined Defiant.
Yeah, and he's been fantastic.
So, Pat Cassidy, amazing addition to Defiance, amazing addition to TEFP chat. Love this guy, and he's also a great addition to the meme channel in Defiance.
In your mind, what makes a good interview on the podcast? Not asking you to name people directly, just overall, what elements make up an entertaining interview? That's a great question.
Great question. As far as entertaining interviews go, someone who is engaged, someone who's ready and willing to talk. A lot of times people are excited to get on the podcast, and then come to recording time, they get clammy or nervous. And usually they tell me, and I can try to pull more things out of them. But you know, when you're recording with me, it's just you and me on the podcast. No one else can hear you. Brian will eventually hear you and change your voice. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, makes it all kinds of shit you didn't.
No, but honestly, what makes a good interview is people who are comfortable, people who can sit back, relax, and kind of talk about their stuff, and someone who doesn't go into excruciating detail. I've found the general feedback for the show is that people love the episodes or the interviews that last 60 minutes to 90 minutes. That's kind of the sweet spot. And people, I really like when people obviously ask questions on Twitter. I think it makes it more engaging and fun. So the more people are involved with the Discord and with Twitter, obviously that impacts the show greatly. But as far as the guest goes, just be open, loose, have fun. Just try to be, you don't have to mention every single match you've ever had. Just hit the high spots.
All right, so sort of a follow-up to that from, I don't know this guy, Get Lynn's.
It's Fuzz. It's my guy. It's Fuzzmaster Flex. It's the number one show master. It's the guy who's been with us since day one. He's been repping the show. Ooh. He's been behind the scenes. He's been legit. In the Discord, he's legit. On Twitter, he retweets every fucking thing I post. Fuzz is legit the best addition to the Discord since we started.
Do you go into the interviews blind for the people that you don't know, or do you do some research on them first?
I read this one and I felt bad because I go in blind. No offense to anybody out there. I'm not going to research your characters. I don't have the time. I've got 4 kids and a wife. I can't read everything you've ever written. I ask everybody the same 8 questions, and then I go into Twitter questions. No, not really. That's what I tell people before I interview them so that they calm down. But the reality of the matter is, I ask everybody, how'd you get into wrestling? how'd you find e-wrestling, or who are your favorite wrestlers? How'd you find e-wrestling? What were the feds you were in? And then I just let the conversation dictate. I just let it take us where it goes, and I ask you questions based on what you say. So I try to be engaged in your story and learn about you on the fly, and ask you about what happens. And so far, it's worked out pretty well for me, because honestly, if I had to read everything before, this show would never get done.
Never.
Or else I couldn't participate in the hobby while one of the two.
Almost a similar follow-up coming straight from a former sponsor.
At Modern Day Gladiators, check it out. It's a wrestling tabletop game. We're going to get into more of that when we interview.
100%.
We're going to play the game and then talk about it afterwards.
And Warren's a great guy. One of the nicest guys you ever meet in this hobby.
Warren's great. I've recently met Warren, he is the most recent EFeder I've met. So shout out to Warren.
So he asks, in your opinion, why did TEFP catch on so well and break out of its clique to connect with all kinds of EFEDs?
I still think we have room to grow. I think it clicks so well because I cover everyone. Because I allow anyone to interview. Part of my logic when I started was, this is going to be a podcast for every EFED. I don't care if it's not something I'm into. I don't care if it's someone I've never heard of. I'm not just going for ratings. I'm going for community. I'm going for everybody. And so it's going to be all inclusive. So something I did early on was, I'm not going to ask people to interview. I'm going to wait until someone says, hey, I want to be on the show. So other than, I posted in Def Chat, hey, who wants to be on the show because I've got no guests in the very beginning, and I got Dwayne Anthony. So unfortunately, no one responded fast enough. Love you, Dwayne Anthony. No, I had a fun interview with him, and I got Brian second, and I had to pick from my friend tree right off the bat. Of the first 10 episodes, I would say half of them were cancellation, which was crazy. I guess people just didn't expect it to get off the ground. They didn't think it was, real. I don't know. But as things got going, it got to the point where maybe every, 8 to 10, I would get one cancellation. So it's worked out a lot better. People are listening. People are taking it seriously. It's been great. I still think there's work to do. There's so much more hobby that I could reach. I've tried Reddit. I've tried Facebook. Some of those are very unsuccessful. Honestly, if I could ask for anything, I would ask for people's help with retweets, with sharing the EFED podcast in their own feds and on their own message boards. If there's one place I can't reach, it's inside your feds.
Just like you hear on every other podcast, hey, on iTunes, etc., whatever, the different apps, rate, subscribe.
Yes. And shout out to everybody who follows us, because, my God, we just reached 1,100 on Twitter. I wouldn't have expected that in a million years. We just reached 100 YouTube followers. I know that's not a lot to most people, but to me, that's amazing. I can't believe it. And I think the reception's been great. The fan base has been great. We get the thumbs up on the YouTube. If you guys want to take the time, click the YouTube link, click thumbs up, and then close your browser. I don't care. It helps us so much when you do those things. It gets us more, visibility, and it encourages us. Every time I get good feedback from an episode, it encourages me to make the next episode better. So hearing from you guys and saying, hey, I listened this week, that was a fun interview, or hey, I think you should do this, that encourages me to do more. So please, by all means, give feedback when you can.
Next up is from Roland. He says, hi.
Hi.
Long time listener, first time caller. He's got way too much stuff. We might skip through some of it. Favorite Bruvs moment.
A favorite Hollywood Bruv moment. I was talking to Stevie about this earlier because I saw the question, and we have two totally different answers. Favorite Hollywood Bruvs moment. Winning every tag team title ever has been great. Being remembered for the Hollywood Bruvs has been a lot of fun. Just people mentioning, hey, that thing you wrote was hilarious. Just being a part of the Bruvs is great. My favorite moment all time has to be this SEG moment where we built a wall of cardboard boxes to keep the rest of the roster out of our locker room and ended up building PCP out of the wall.
That's great.
By far, one of my favorite moments in all of EFedding, the most hilarious thing I think I've ever been a part of writing. And every time I think of SEG or I think of Hollywood Bruvs, it's one of the first things that pop in my mind. So that's what I'm going to say. Other than winning titles, it has to be that segment.
What was the supposed end game for the UTA invasion? Okay.
We've reached that point in the show, folks, that Brian has the hiccups. Here we go.
Yeah, so what was the supposed end game for the UTA invasion angle against Defiance? But before the temporary closure, open parentheses, for example, was Mikey ever booked to actually overcome Kale Murray
By God, Roland.
and take the fist from him?
No, Mikey was never booked to win the fist. My intention was never to win the fist. My intention was to merge two feds successfully, create a good storyline, and hopefully make a smooth transition into Defiance from me running a fed. My intention was to quit fed heading. I'm glad I had a chance to run a fed. I think it's going to help me moving forward. Eventually, my intention is to run another fed, and I think that's going to come up in a question later, so I'll wait for then. But yeah, it was a good experience, but ultimately, Mikey was never supposed to win the fist. He was supposed to merge the feds together.
Mikey was never supposed to win the fist. God damn it, I didn't get that. So I like this question because I don't even know what mine would be, but I'm interested to hear what yours would if you could think of one. Favorite Atomic Dropcast moment?
A single moment.
And will it come back? Well, he says moment, so for me, I think that has to be favorite Atomic Dropcast bit, right?
I mean, it's got to be. That's what you think of. I love so much about the Atomic Dropcast. I miss it so much, and I wish we had the time to do it. I've recently talked to Brian about a few options we could do. Maybe we could do that show live instead of recording it and make it more fun. Do something a little different. I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But favorite moments from the Atomic Dropcast, I would say it's making Brian do terrible wrestling impressions and myself doing terrible wrestling impressions. Never before have I felt so bold about doing impressions as when I'm this deep
Until you heard mine?
Until I've heard Brian's, and I said, okay, I can top that. Hearing Brian's Paul Heyman, hearing his Brian Pillman, those are moments that I don't forget. Undertaker Bank and Loan, building the t-shirt shop with Brian over like DMs and just having fun and
Just nonsense.
what else can we do? I am literally right now, I wish I could show you guys. I am literally wearing an Atomic Dropcast t-shirt as we record this. It is Owen, Check the Barrels.
Check the barrels.
My favorite design and probably my favorite bit from the show. So that's it. On one episode of Raw, when the Hart Foundation are searching for Shawn Michaels,
Yes.
they are looking all over the arena, and they go outside, and Brett tells Owen, check the barrels. Like Shawn Michaels would be hiding in a barrel. And I fucking lost it when we talked about it.
As Bulldog is like leaning, like hand on it, leaning down to look under an 18-wheeler trailer. Which,
Like he was laying down under the trailer.
yeah, from any standpoint, you could see there's nobody under there.
So the best moment from the show was Owen Check the Barrels, a moment from a Raw episode where the Hart Foundation was searching for Shawn Michaels to beat him up. And I'm wearing the shirt as we speak.
Love that show. His follow-up is, will it come back?
I hope so. Brian and I have talked about it. More or less, I goad him into it. So the more I talk him into it, the more it's likely to come back because Brian will do anything I ask if I ask enough times.
Pretty much. What inspired? Well, you kind of answered this earlier on the Twitter question with Madman Zelensky. What inspired you, A, to do a podcast initially, and B, to meet other handlers, and C, to launch the EFed Tees store?
Okay.
I'm gonna hold my breath while you do
I
this.
can tell you're trying. Oh, that's so much funnier that you're hiccuping. Okay. My inspiration for the podcast, as I explained, was I was doing one. It ceased to exist, and I wanted to do something else with a broadcast, and I thought I would marry the two loves together, EFEDs and podcasts. Here we are. What was number 2?
To meet other handlers.
Meet other handlers. Actually, that happened first. I got into the hobby. I was in Wrestle UTA, and I was traveling quite a bit for my new job as a sales rep for a recycling equipment company. And so I traveled to Pennsylvania, which is one state away, and I knew of another handler from Wrestle UTA, Mr. Chris Ross, who was living there, and it was pretty close to where I had some family living. So I went to visit them. I hit up Chris and I said, "Hey man, I'm in town. Would you be interested in grabbing lunch together or something?" And he said, "Well, fuck yeah, let's do it." So I met Chris Ross. We hung out some restaurant that I can't name today, and I'm pissed that I can't because it was great. There was no dice involved, and we had a great time. And I said, "Wow, that was fun." I met a handler in e-wrestling. I never thought I'd do that. And then I met 18 more. I kept on traveling for work, and every time I would whatever Fed I was in, whether it was Wrestle UTA, whether it was Defiance, whether it was Val, I don't know, whatever, all those fucking Feds, I would just say, "Hey, I'm going to be in this area. Does anybody here live around here? Pizza? You want to grab a beer? Can we have a coffee? I'm going to be in town all week. I'm going to be bored to shit. How can we do something?"
That's how we met. You're like, "Hey, I'm going to be in this area." I'm like, "I live in that area." And you're like, "You want to meet?" I'm like, "Oh, shit. This is sure. Okay." And
so over time, I started meeting handlers, and Chris Ross was first. And then I met, I want to say Jay next, of Perfection of Defiance and UTA. I can't think of the chronological order, but I've met characters. I've met Murr, I've met Stevie, I've met Jay, I've met Linz, I've met Trash Bag Johnny, Garbage Man Johnny, whatever the fuck his name was. I met Al Larcher. I've met, I've got the list somewhere, but there's an obscene amount of names. Tom Ford, Seth. Who else have I met, Brian?
Roland in Chicago.
Roland. I mean, it's been crazy. I've hung out with Jay 3 times. Brian and Jay were both at my wedding.
Watching AEW.
Watching AEW during the reception instead of partying with us. It was a great time. These are wrestling nerds. Yeah, no, I've had a blast meeting everybody. I just got to pass Linz. She's got like 24. I'm at like 18 or 19. The race is on. Next year, I'm hosting the EFed podcast fly-in event in Chicago. If COVID restrictions are relaxed, I'm going to host a conference. Even if I can get 10 people to fly in or hang out, I'm good with that. And I think there are 5 in Chicago, so it's an easy win.
There you go. What inspired you to launch EFed Tees?
Brian, I don't remember. I remember hitting you up and saying, "I've got an idea. Stay with me on this. Let me pitch it, and then give me your answer." And I don't remember what inspired it, but I said that, Defiance needs t-shirts. Mikey Unlikely needs t-shirts. All these people wear I think Kendricks, every time he comes out, he's like, Kendricks is wearing the new Hollywood Bruvs t-shirt. And it's just, we need a merchandise. We're playing a fantasy game that's fun. And I've seen people with fantasy football trophies, with fantasy football jerseys, with all kinds of shit. Why can't we have the same thing? One day I hit up Brian and I said, "Let me pitch something to you, and you're my business partner. If you want to be involved, let's do it 50-50. If you don't, I'll try it by myself, but I'll likely need your help anyway."
That's how these things tend to go.
That's how they go. And Brian's like, "Okay, what is it?" And I said, "EFed t-shirts. I've already bought EFedTees.com. I was drunk and I bought EFedTees.com.
Forgot that. Yeah,
I already bought it. And I texted to Brian and I said, "Okay, EFedTees.com, I own it. We're going to make an EFed t-shirt store." And he said, "Oh shit, that's a good idea." And quickly thereafter, we were at work. Brian was building the website, building what you see today, which is awesome. I've never seen a store so well implemented into a website that it's awesome. Everything you see, from the tags on the shirts to the package you receive in the mail, all says EWTs and is branded in our logos. So shout out to Brian on all of that hard work, because I had nothing to do with that. I just had a germ of an idea. Brian's been designing everything and building the website and working everything behind the scenes. I'm just doing the accounting and other things behind the scenes as well. So
just doing the accounting and being the face of the company to make sure no one hates us.
And talking to everybody and doing all the deals. Yeah. I'm a salesman in real life, so I'm a salesman in the game as well.
Do you have other characters you'd like to see? You'd like to have a serious run with one day, other than Mikey Unlikely?
Do I have any serious characters I'd like to have a run with someday other than Mikey? No.
No one you've ran prior you'd like to bring back or whatever?
No. I think by the time I'm done running Mikey, I've written Mikey to where he's my age, roughly. I'm 32 today.
Today?
So not today. Happy birthday, Meg. So I would say that he's got, I could write 8 more years of prime career. I could write 10 more years and be fine. And Mikey's 42. And the way I see it, Mikey's my last character. When he's done, I'm done. I expect I'll do more in the hobby, but Mikey's my final main character.
The Dibbins are an incredibly underrated and hilarious tag team you have. They should make a run somewhere. This isn't a question. It is a statement.
Thanks. That's Roland. Thanks, Roland.
Yep.
Dibbins are fun.
Hi, Roland.
I had a fun time creating them. I've not done much with them in many years. And yeah, thanks, buddy.
Last one. Be honest. Unfiltered opinion of Bret Hart.
Mm.
Don't feel like you need to be bullied into what Brian wants you to say. Let's hear it. He's the best, right?
So, to be honest, and in all honesty, Bret Hart is a great wrestler. Bret Hart is a guy who I could get behind when I was renting VHSs from Video Safari as a kid and bringing home like the 93 King of the Ring where he wins a tournament. I was so behind him for stuff like that. For Bret versus Owen, for that stuff. He's so good. But I wouldn't put him on my Mount Rushmore.
Because he's a douche.
No, because RVD and D-Lo, because there are better wrestlers than Bret Hart to me.
So jumping to Ross, can I count on you to only bring a carry-on for our destination hangout? ? I don't want either of us to be held up at the airport. You know what they say. Pack light, enjoy your flight.
Well, listen, Ross, I don't mean to brag, but not only do I have global entry, I've got a fast pass. So I don't get held up in many airports because I am an expert traveler. And by expert, I mean I've done it like 30 times for work.
He follows up to say, when we meet, can we shake hands?
You know it. It's a big part of what most people, when they meet me, they want to shake my hand, mostly because of the dynasty gimmick, otherwise because it's the general thing you do when you meet someone.
Ross also says, is it true that your middle name is Unlikely? And that's where you got the idea for your character, Mikey Unlikely.
No, that is not true. But funny story, I have 2 middle names, and it has caused me much grief in my life under legal names and credit cards and IDs and everything else. Fuck. I have 2 middle names, so yeah, interesting story.
On a scale of set phasers to stun to in a galaxy far, far away, how much more awesome is Star Wars and Star Trek?
It sets your phasers to kill because Star Trek is so much better than Star Wars. Shout out to my Trekkies out there. Live long and prosper.
These Canadians are a bit long-winded, am I right?
Yes, they are.
Let's be real. How much work does Brian put into the episodes to make you sound good? ? Hi, Brian.
More than I do. All I do is sit down and record my bits. I send them to Brian. No, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it takes me many, many, many takes to get your questions of the weeks just right.
And sometimes Brian still mixes up files.
Yes, sometimes Brian replaces the wrong file, and you get the same EFed spotlight 2 weeks in a row. Congratulations, Women's Revolution Fed. I had to shoot a message to another Fed today and say, hey, you'll be on next week.
I legit don't know how that happened. I was trying to get ahead of things. I was like, I'm doing good. I got both Patreons up. I got the YouTube loaded. Matt Loaf was like, I like the YouTube. I was like, I got you. I'm going to get it up early, and I'm going to post the link on Patreon, and nothing went my way. Nothing went my way. So anyhow, moving on. We got Roland, Ross, and now another degenerate. I mean, he might as well be Canadian. He's right there. Seth is burned.
Oh, Seth.
Seth asks if you'll humor him. Top 3 favorite interviews, and it's okay to say the one with me is all 3, especially when Uber Eats doesn't cooperate with me during the course of the interview.
Oh, Seth, shout out to Seth, first man to not only order food on the podcast, but to eat it on the podcast.
I mean, these interviews last a little while. He follows up and he also says, favorite Mikey Unlikely match.
Recently, I don't remember if it's the one I won the match, where I won the title from Oscar Burns, or if it was the one that I lost. But I came up with a spot in the match where Mikey Unlikely loosened the corner pad, but didn't get it fully off before the referee admonished him. So it's hanging there, but it's loose. And later on in the match, we come back to it, and Oscar Burns goes to climb up for his finisher, which is like a jumping, spinning, flippy-do. And when he goes to jump off of it, it slips and the pad comes off, and he falls to the outside and lands on his head. And Mikey takes full advantage and wins the championship and wins the match. And honestly, that was the most creative spot I've come up with myself, and so I enjoyed that aspect of it. And Seth wrote a hell of a, Seth writes every match like it's a fucking main event of a pay-per-view.
Jesus, does he?
And so nothing but love for Seth and his power writing ability. Seth and Crimson Lord, I will swear to the end of my ability, are the 2 most powerhouse writers I've ever met.
I'd have to add Rolando in there.
Oh, Roland as well. Yes, no doubt. So, shout out to those guys. But yeah, my match with Seth and winning the Fist of Defiance was amazing. Also, the end match for Mikey Unlikely versus Will Haynes at whatever pay-per-view it was.
There you go. So Seth hits a high note and then instantly undercuts it. Favorite Star Trek series?
The Next Generation. I've only watched the 60s one. I've watched the animated series. I've watched the Next Generation, and I've watched the old movies. So I've not watched them all, but thus far, the Next Generation is great. I'm a big fan of Picard, and I will tell you to make it so.
So Rivs says Stardate 2020. Sabaro makes you their personal ambassador. I assume he means like brand ambassador.
Yes.
Right? How many pounds do you gain?
Both 0 and 100, because it is crack pizza. I love Sabaro pizza. It is at my local mall, and Jay and I share that joke because Jay and I are on the Snapchat together, and whenever we have lunch, we always snap each other. And so he always gets my crack pizza snaps, and it's always Sabaro. And when he snaps me crack pizza, it's Little Caesars. So we each got our own little crack pizza there.
All right, so Rivs follows up. This is Jay. He says, you have to replace JFK to make a different version of the Hollywood Bros. No former dynasty or 24K guys.
Impossible.
Who do you choose and what do you rename it to be?
No dynasty, no 24K guy. I've got to reform the Hollywood Bros. What do I name it, and who's my partner?
Yep.
New tag team partner is Landell of Defiance fame.
Who?
And our tag team name would be Old School Principal.
Not
We're
bad.
both fans of the 1980s, cutting 1980s promos.
All right, so going on, Rick asks, as you know he would, is your mom hot?
No. Good luck, Rick. I like to keep it simple. She's not hot. She's not single. She's married. She's taken. I'll beat your ass, Rick. Bring it on.
Highlander 4H.
Ron Hall McDonald. Here we go.
He says, why won't you let me be on the show?
Because you haven't asked.
When will the show have a call-in /live tweet feature.
Ooh, this is the kind of our test run. Hopefully soon. We might have, maybe next time we can have people ask their own questions to me. Or not to me, to a guest.
Why don't you have commercials?
Brian, you want to answer this one?
Ron, we have commercials.
Every single episode ever in the history of the podcast has had commercials. Shout out to Ron Hall. I love that guy. We've been friends since like 5 years ago.
All right, so Ravage, where do you see the future of EFeds? ? Will 2K and Fire Pro Feds be the future, or will written feds stay at the top?
I think 2K, RP or not RP Feds. I'm sorry, COV Feds, Fire Pro, those kind of things. I think they are the future. I think we're seeing a huge shift in younger players to go that route. I think it's awesome what like Shoot Project is doing, where they're doing like both half and half, where the segments are still written in, but their matches are on Fire Pro, and they are an angle fed, and it looks like a lot of fun. So I definitely think that's the way things are going. There's so much visual representation with video games and graphics that you can do easily today that I think it's almost impossible to keep it purely written. I think there will always be a niche for it, but I think it's going to go the way of electronic gaming.
So to answer what's coming up after Seth's question, so you do not have a good written fed with an application?
I do have a good written fed with a written application. It is defiancewrestling.com. Also check out highoctanewrestling.com. Also check out GCWA, check out EWC, check out a billion other feds. Anybody in the community will shill the shit out of you.
So Ravage continues on. He asks, is Rick's mom hot?
I hope so. I would think so. Rick's a big boy. I gotta imagine his mom's a big lady. I can get behind it.
Would you call him dad if she was single?
If she was single, he would call me dad. Rick.
Explain like I'm 5. What the hell bruv means to someone not in the know?
Easy. It means brother.
Alright, now explain it to me like I'm 4.
Okay, it means bro.
Alright, explain to me like I'm 3 and my parents have given me...
So, bruv is the English version of bro. Like in America, what's up, bro? This is what we're doing, bro. Bruv is the same thing in Europe or in London, or so I'm told by Stevie. If I'm wrong, Matt, then it's on Stevie, not me.
Popular with chavs. Okay.
Yes, and cunts. Sorry.
You soccer hooligans and such.
I had a great time in London. One of my best trips of my life, and got to hang out with Stevie and Murr for an entire week. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah. I love inside jokes. I like to be a part of what's done. What is the regret you have for a character?
For
any of them? Pick.
Well, that's easy. Giving Scott Crimson Lord the UTA World Title. No, I'm kidding, Scott. Love you to death. There's no you listening, so I had to rip you a little bit. Scott Crimson Lord is one of the best handlers of all time. I have nothing but good shit to say about Scott.
100%, and he is a murderer with that whole the Defiant thing. He pitched that. He pitched that to me as such a like a little tiny thing, and he's like built it into such. Oh man, it's such a fucking asset to the Fed.
Check out the Defiant over at defiancewrestling.com. Check the forums. Check the Discord. It's awesome. Do I have any regrets for a character? I would say never winning a RP World Title with Mikey Unlikely. I would love to, but at this point, I don't think I can. I'm not that great of a role player. I've reached mediocrity and above. I've never been the top guy. How do I put this? I'm afraid that if I join a roleplay fed today as Mikey Unlikely, that I'll be seen as the host of the EFed podcast and given preferential pushes. So I'm hesitant to even join feds today because of my involvement in the podcast.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't want to be gifted anything. I want to earn everything.
What is the craziest match idea you've ever had?
I don't know. Not many.
I fucking know.
War games?
Yeah.
I guess that's it. I'm not big on match ideas. I'm not the guy who's going to come up with the triple cage of doom. That's not my gig. I am the guy who wants to have, how can I screw you over and bend the rules without breaking them in a way that's never been done before? I want to have a singles match and just surprise you with how I win.
Have you thought about retiring?
Yeah, no, I have thought about it. I feel like I'm on maybe the final leg of my run as a handler. I do see a run as a Fed head before. After this, I would love to get one good run as a Fed head and maybe use the EFed podcast to launch it. Use the EFed podcast to cover it on a weekly basis and kind of take the EFed podcast and keep it about everybody, but also include news and notes and tidbits about my Fed. And we saw what it did for Defiance, and I don't mean to speak highly of myself, but Brian, the reaction since the podcast started, the Defiance roster has exploded, and I can name at least 4 to 6 people who are directly related to the podcast.
100%. Defiance is at near capacity. I don't know how many times, mostly from Mike, because he has so many communications with so many people, so many great people in this hobby, where I get the message, have applications been closed yet? I'm like, nope, not yet.
It works. The advertising works. Having a spot on the EFed podcast brought in a ton of handlers, and it's been great. So I don't mean to speak highly of myself, but advertising on the show, it's worked out for Defiance.
100%. If you are involved in a Fed or you run a Fed, advertising on the EFed podcast in the long haul does 100% work.
It's great. I love what's going on in Defiance. And if you're into angle feds at all, or if you're angle curious, check out defiancewrestling.com.
So moving on to Matt Lowe says, if D'Lo Brown had a match with Mikey Unlikely, who would win and why would it be D'Lo?
It's D'Lo Brown because no one kicks out of the sky high and then the lowdown. One time the EFed podcast, the Atomic Dropcast reached out to D'Lo Brown via Twitter and asked him to guest star on an episode, and we never got a response back. We reached out and said, hey, we will literally pay you to be on our podcast.
Cat Pasadity.
All right.
Are you in fact going to kick our sorry ass out on the street?
Yes, and here's your receipt. This long as shit. I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to tune in. This has been a blast. I enjoyed the interview. This will drop on episode 50. So thank you guys so much for listening to our first live episode of the EFed podcast interview. We might try this format in the future, and I will not try to get so drunk. I ended up on number 8. Tone, I don't think I hung with you, but I did good enough for a podcast to still be legible by the end. So here we go. That's it, guys. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That was so much fun. I want to thank Brian for taking the time and actually doing the interview for me and interviewing me. I had a blast talking to one of my good buddies, as always. I want to thank everybody who tuned in live. We had so much fun just messing with the audience and answering their questions and just talking to people. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening today and for the last 50 episodes. This has been a fun ride. We really appreciate it, and we are booked for the next 50 episodes. That's why we've cut off the guest list. We are way booked in advance, thanks to you guys. The EFed podcast has been very successful, and we couldn't appreciate you more. Please keep tuning in. Please consider the Patreon over at patreon.com/EFed podcast. And please, please, please keep the hobby positive. This is a great game to play, and it's because each and every one of you in the community. Let's keep it that way. For Brian, I'm Mikey. Thank you each for tuning in to the EFed podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
commercial free on Patreon.